Thank you, Andrew. Welcome everyone to the October 6th, 7 a.m. virtual meeting for the Westminster Historic District Commission. I'll call us to order at 7:01. Ooh, pretty good. With our statement of authority, the Westminster Historic District Commission derives its authority from the Chapter 164, Article 9A of the City Code, which is authorized by the Maryland Code Annotated Land Use Article, Division 1, Single Jurisdiction Planning and Zoning, Title 8, Historic Preservation. The qualifications of the Westminster Historic District Commission are on file at the City Administration Building at 45 East West Main Street, and the file is open to the public. All righty, has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as written.
Thank you, Kevin. Do we have a second?
Second.
That was our friend, Josh.
Aaron.
Oh, Aaron, sorry. That's a bad camera angle on you.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to work on that.
I knew it was some male, but I wasn't sure. Okay, well, all in favor indicate by saying yes.
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 Affirmative.
Great. All right, so the minutes are approved. Thank you very much to city staff who prepared them. Next, old business. Let's talk about tax credit application requirements. I think there's a discussion here that's needed. From what I could derive, I have to say the Zoom recording from last month kept buffering on me. So I didn't really get to see it till Friday. And so from what I can derive, there really are two proposals before us. From our last meeting, one is on getting multiple bids and one is on getting some sort of licensure for bidders. Am I characterizing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the primary discussion point was, what is our consistent, do we have a consistent practice, and can we codify it about asking for multiple bids? Because in the past, there's been times where we've asked for it and there's times where we haven't. And so the urge there was that we needed to be consistent. And then what were the criteria for those bids? In other words, if I own a property and I also own a construction company of some kind, can I bid on my own property? Can I submit that as a bid? And so just whatever the criteria are, that we have some clear guidelines about that moving forward.
That would be really great. And that example of having your own company and on your own property is the only time I remember anyone being asked to get a second bid. Maybe we should put this into a motion, then have a discussion, and then decide how we're going to vote on it.
Well, if I may, Madam Chair, there are, from what I can come up with, 3 places where the commission can include this in sort of the standard practice. Number 1, which would be the lease complex, would be in your application for historic rehabilitation property tax credit at that application. That application, about 3 years ago, we discussed changing it to a better format. During the final change, we could incorporate it into that. The next change, which will be a little bit higher level, would be incorporating that into your rules of order and procedure that were adopted the end of last year. And then the most solid way to get this would be via ordinance and put it into the historic district zone, or for the historic district under the city code. But then that would have to be go through ECDC, Mayor and Common Council, Planning and Zoning Commission for recommendation, then back to Mayor and Common Council for review and approval. So there's your 3 avenues: the application, the rules of order, your rules of order and procedure, and the city zoning ordinance, to have anything like that done moving forward, so we can so the commission can have that concrete moving forward.
I really appreciate that, Andrew, because it's really important to know how we're going to do this. But I would like to just focus in, what do we really want to do? What is in our best interest to insist on, and what, let's decide first on what we want to do, then we'll decide on how we want to do it. All
Sounds
right.
good.
So do we have a motion about bids? I mean, I think one of my first questions would be, is this aiming towards low bid? Is that going to be the requirement, that we only accept low bids?
If I may chime in, I think the purpose of getting multiple bids is to kind of, for our own intelligence purposes, we don't really have our finger on the pulse of exactly what a contracting job would cost. If two bids are roughly, within 20%, 10% of each other, I'd say the homeowner pick whichever one they feel comfortable with. If they got a good rapport with one particular contractor, but they end up being more expensive, that's their choice. They can submit the application based on that. But I think what our aim should be is to make sure that they're not working in collusion to artificially inflate the price. And that's really, I think, the overall goal is to reduce fraud, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're working with tax dollars. And I think that's where we have to look at this, is the citizens of the city pay into this in some fashion. So we have to do our due diligence to make sure that that money is being used in good faith. So that's really.
So let's pick this apart. Andrew, have we ever had a fraud case?
Not that I know of. There's been about, I don't know, 6 or so tax credits, 6 to 10 tax credits since I've been here. I don't think any of them. I'm almost positive none of them have ended up in fraud.
I know I've been reviewing them for the better part of 2 decades, and I don't recall a single one having any questionable expenses. Not one. So
I think if I may, it's not, I think fraud might be too strong of a word, but certainly we have asked repeatedly for multiple ones for context. And so I think that, we just need to have a consistent policy here on when we ask for additional bids for context, or just how we're going to pursue context in general when we are both giving and dispensing advice and also evaluating the scope of work that is before us.
can you remind me, Josh, of which ones we were asking for multiple bids for context?
I would have to go back through notes. I would certainly welcome the rest of the commission to, search their memories. We've definitely we've asked for it, certainly for the property that was formerly Country. What's the rental company out of Frederick that runs what used to be Kara's Country Cottage? We certainly asked for them to give us multiple bids, and that was a case of the owner bidding on his own work.
That's the only one I can remember. But if
it
there
was
have been
also
multiple
raised.
ones, I'd be more curious.
Well, I don't think that we held people's feet to the fire on it other than him. I think that we certainly have entertained it as a recommendation and a request on multiple other occasions beyond that. It's been a topic of conversation throughout our meetings over the last 2 years. And so I think what would behoove us as a committee and as a commission is just to all make sure we're on the same page and we have clear understanding of what our practice is moving forward.
Can I just jump in here? I don't see what the problem is. And I think, just having, if we ask for more bids, that's being transparent, and the more information we can be, if we're more informed, we'll be able to, spend the money better. And just because, and it doesn't mean that we go with the lowest bid. It's just but I think it's, transparency, and I don't see what, the issue would be of asking people to get two bids on a project.
So
So-
if I can chime in just very quickly, in preparation for this discussion, I did go through previous meeting notes as far back as I had the time to read, basically, and I could not find any precedent in which case we asked the applicant for a second bid officially or approved an application warranting a second bid. We've had internal conversations. I don't know if the burden was ever placed on the applicant officially. I think it was more of a request of courtesy, but I don't know if there's been any formal, we can, other than the case that Josh had already mentioned, other than that one, I don't know if there's been any approval with conditions upon receiving a second estimate. So in that case, yeah, I don't know if there's an actual case we can point to that says everybody after a certain date was asked to provide 2 quotes. And then I also brought up the last discussion that there could be some reasons why a second quote is not particularly feasible, and that would also need to be codified. For example, if there's a particular company that specializes in a very specific type of painting or historic preservation, and that company is the only one within 200 miles, you know, and I think we have to, again, at the end of the day, we work with the community, not in opposition to it. I want to make sure we're holding, you know, standing in line with the homeowners, but also kind of acting as a barrier against the potential abuse for a particular application. So I think that's the kind of context we were looking at. Is I think it was one of the first cases after Josh and I were appointed to the board where this came up. And then we started asking other members of the board, like, how come we don't always ask for 2 quotes? Maybe we should start doing that. And that was something that we had just started discussing internally. So that's some historic context as to why this discussion is happening now. So I'll put that.
So can I give you a little context of my own? I don't know if you're aware, but there are state tax credits for rehabilitation, and the state does not ask for duplicitous bids. There are also federal tax credits for rehabilitation, and the feds do not ask for additional bids. And frankly, I've always been very proud to tell our community that we don't ask for more paperwork than the state or the feds, that we try to keep our slimlined approach to tax credits as simple as possible. And let me go through a few of the projects that have been done with city tax credits and state tax credits at the same time at my own house, just as an example. So I had I had a company actually in plastering my house. They were working on my plaster. The company was falling behind. They were taking like 3 weeks to work on a simple couple of rooms. And I called in a person I know by the name of Heather, who is a historic preservation specialist in plaster. Heather is a sole proprietor. She has no W-4 employees. She offers no architectural services, and she does no engineering or framing services. So Heather does not need a license to practice in Maryland or in the city of Westminster. And she was called in to get that company back online. Within 3 days, she caught up 3 weeks worth of falling behind on the contract. And I'm thinking now she couldn't have been hired under these conditions. We would have had to stop and wait for a meeting and get her approved as an extra contractor. So just think about that. Think about next guy I had come and work on my house who got city and state tax credits. His name was Hank. He hung my 6-inch gutters. My half round 6-inch gutters were 4 inches, and they just couldn't hold the load off my roof, and they were beginning to pull off the building. Hank had such a brand new company that he had just broken away from his dad, and I was his very first customer. Customer number 1. He was so new at his company, I actually went up with him to Hanover and purchased the materials on my dime. And I had my receipt, and then he did his work as a sole proprietor with no W-4 employees, no architectural services, and no engineering services. So he was not required to have a license to do that work in Carroll County or in the city of Westminster. So again, I'm thinking he might not have been someone who could have gotten approved if we base it on licensure. I mean, I don't know what kind of license he would get as a gutter guy. There's no service he provides that a license would cover. Lastly, I'd like to bring up.
Are we talking about licensure or
Excuse me,
two quotes?
excuse me, I'd like to finish.
I want to make sure we're staying on the same vein.
We are.
Okay.
We are. Lastly, I got a guy by the name of Bob Spicer. He came out under one of our grants, under one of our tax credits. He is recognized as the expert for the C&O Canal for their brick and mortar work. He was recommended to me by somebody down in DC from the National Park Service. He came from Sharpsburg. And again, he's a sole source proprietor, no wage grade employees, no architectural services, no engineering services. And to be honest, he came known as the best guy in the region. And again, he came in with a single bid. Now, I don't know who I would have bid him against, just some guy. I don't know. I don't know that he would have necessarily been the cheapest guy because he needed a lift to do his work. It's possible somebody could have come in cheaper, but the bottom line was he's the top of the pile. And no, I didn't go out and get a bunch of estimates. I felt completely gifted to have found him to come do work for us under our tax credit and under the state. So, to keep on topic, I don't think it's going to be easy for anyone to be a sole source, a sole proprietor. They don't have a second guy to hold the bucket. I think that, especially with me, and as we will talk about my tax credit coming up, this is my third time around on doing this work in my house. I've been here 25 years. I've had the work done without necessarily licensure. So it's my third time hearing bids about shutters and paint. I guess I just find it a little weird that we would have me go out and get extra bids, take someone's time out of their day to come look at my house, tell me I need vinyl shutters, give me a bid. That's going to cost them a couple of hours of work. And, I just don't find that to be a good thing for our community, in that people will eventually hear, hey, 50% of everybody doesn't get the work. They're going to just be padding up their estimates, So when they do catch that work, they'll make up for all the times they don't. I mean, to me, it seems like an unnecessary thing. And frankly, if you're just doing it to educate yourselves, I think that's a very unfortunate way to use the public, to educate you on what it should take to do this work. All right, I've said my piece.
Hello, I'm the one that raised the question about a license or home improvement license. My thought was helping the people who apply for the tax credit. Everything would then be on the same level. The contractor would be a proven entity, so that will help everybody. Now, I understand your points, and they are very valid, but I thought another way of being consistent, having a home improvement license, made me think someone was already vetted and a proven entity. So maybe we are discussing this, maybe that will also, my thought my process of thinking might be altered then too.
I just see it to be duplicitous to say, we are not doing low bid. We recognize that quality and craft and
I
relationship
wasn't
matters.
saying low bids.
But then to say they all need to have a license, that presses up the cost. And yet we need two estimates to make sure the costs are reasonable. I just see us at cross purposes here.
Can I say something? Can I jump in? Chris, I see your point and I agree with Kevin. Your points are very valid. But I guess I think we're getting ahead of ourselves here. I think when we had discussed this last, the way I remember it, was that I think just common sense needs to prevail here. The way I remember it is that we didn't say we need to have 2 or 3 bids for every single one. I think what we said or what we discussed was if there was a bid for something that we didn't understand or it didn't look right for whatever reason, then we asked for the second bid. We're not going to ask for it. We have that safety net where we can ask if we want to, but we don't have to necessarily ask. And if we know, I mean, I don't do architectural conservation, but I do it for book and paper. And I know a lot of conservators who do sculpture, who do houses, who do, artifacts. And, it's always good to go out and get bids from people. So I don't see, somebody could come and say, I want to have my, my brick repointed or shutters or whatever. And we'll say, oh yeah, we recognize that company or that person and, they're the best in the area. And then somebody could come along and ask for something, to be done on their house have a bid and they could, and we're going to go, we might say, well, we've never heard of these people, or we never heard of this, or we could. So I think it just allows us a little leeway just to ask, but not necessarily for everybody. We're not trying to hobble anybody for goodness sake, we want the downtown, we want this town to look better, so I don't see.
The onus is all on the homeowner, right? If the work doesn't get done properly or the bills don't get paid, the city's out nothing. Right? They just don't come back and get reimbursed. And we go over every nickel of receipts. So to me, the onus is already on the homeowner. Secondly, in my case, and I keep bringing my case up because I feel like I got caught in this revolving door. The tax credit is less than $1,000, on almost all federal contracting that we do in the feds, there's a minimum of like $5,000. Anything below that, they don't even bother with asking for bids or anything else. It's, there's like a minimum. So to me, it would make sense if we said historic tax credits over $50,000 require a couple of bids. But when you're talking about now down to less than $1,000, that I have to go out and find other people and waste their time, that seems to me to be counterproductive.
Well,
So
I'm not
if
talking
I-
about money.
All right,
I'm not
let's
talking about money. I mean, I think like if you get 2 bids and the higher bid is the company or the person that is more proficient, I think you need to go with them. I think, because I think you need to go with them, not just the cheapest. We're not talking about just the cheapest. I mean, I think that defeats the purpose of having a historic district commission. So I think that's why that's just the way I'm looking at it this way.
And lastly, the other thing I'm just going to toss in for this dollar discussion is that, I wholeheartedly agree and did when we had that company that we were confused about, that we couldn't tell whether they were sort of paying themselves. And that's a whole different category. To me, it looks fraudulent, or if it looks like people are self-serving, I think we can make a rule about that very easily. I think that's not I think that would be certainly something that we did and we can ask for consistently and say, look, if you're paying your own company to fix up your properties, you've got to demonstrate to us that there is a second bid out there that would do something comparable.
Then let's start there. Let's do that. Let's make that a rule, a hard and fast rule that If a particular entity also happens to own a construction company and that construction company wants to bid on the work, they must also include a second quote from a non-conflict interest construction company somewhere. That's because that's really what we're discussing here. It's just avoiding conflict of interest. And at the end of the day, I don't want to get too into the nitty gritty of semantics, politics, all of that, because it really, when it came to my attention that we were approving, I mean, it may be $1,000, but we're not a huge city. $1,000 will pay for.
Josh, you're cutting out.
To everyone.
Josh,
Not that.
Aaron, you're
It's
cutting
Aaron.
out.
Aaron, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I cutting out? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Aaron, you're cutting out. You got right to the point of it may be $1,000.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I don't know. Maybe my internet signal's going crazy, but hang on. Let me see if I can improve anything here.
It's almost like
But
you
yeah.
touched your speaker or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. Somebody's
Well,
trying
go
to-
ahead and repeat your thought.
But yeah, so what I was saying, it might be $1,000, but it is tax money. And that was really my point of view, was if I was listening to a meeting and I was involved in community events and I was tracking on these things and I found out that somebody was approving a grant, even if it was, $60 or $500, it wouldn't rest easy to me, just as somebody's like, hey, I paid that. That it just seems weird that it would just go out the door with no due diligence. So that was really my reason for raising the concern. But if that gets too detailed, let's start with what we just talked about. Let's start with the companies that prevent more of a clear conflict of interest, and we'll start there.
And I just want to be clear, I think that we should be looking at, as this commission, we should be looking at what's the best company or the best person who's to be doing the work that they're bidding on, whether it's a little more expensive or not. So, I mean, that's my concern. I want somebody that knows what they're doing to do it the right way. And that way we have a safeguard there to look at it that way. It's not just about the lowest bidder and saving money. I'm not even really considering that right now, because
Right.
If they're reasonable, they should be within a couple of hundred, a certain amount of money. So I just, that's my concern. So it's actually helping everybody. If,
Yeah.
you want to get a bid on certain things at certain times, not everybody all the time.
Yeah, I think it was.
Can I?
Go ahead, Josh. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Aaron, if I can weigh in for a moment. First of all, just a couple of historic notes. Madam Chair, I don't think this is about you and your bid. This is a consistent thing that we have brought up over the last year plus. And so we're just looking to have some consistency on it. I will also point out that if our guideline is going to be conflict of interest, that ends up, looking for a lot of detective work on our part, because it may be a family member with a different name. I can think of at least one, possibly two other projects where we've talked about where we sort of deduced that it was the husband or the son or, the cousin. And, again, we can get into the weeds really quickly there. My personal recommendation would be that we set a bar for multiple bids at above a certain price point. And I think Chris's recommendation was really good on that. We don't need multiple bids for $1,000 job or a $5,000 job. But if we get above 20, 50,000, whatever the case may be, maybe that's where we start, just requiring it as a best practice. And I will also opinion on that. I have worked in construction for years. I have done lots of construction projects on my house. I get multiple bids on every project I do, and especially if it's a big project. So I appreciate not wanting to do more work, but I think that if we, again, set a threshold where it's a certain amount of dollar amount, it's just par for the course that you submit multiple estimates. That is in the owner's best interest, and it's a kind of a crazy situation if they're not doing that already. Again, I don't want to over police people. I don't want to get buried in the details. I don't want to create more work for all of us. I just want to be consistent, because we have asked or suggested multiple bids multiple times, and at least it's been a topic of conversation. And whatever we move forward on, I'm okay with. I just want us all to be on the same page with it. And so that's why I believe we're trying to have the conversation.
Well, Josh, and I appreciate you saying that. However, my letter is the one where that requirement was written in by city staff. I hadn't seen any other letters other than the one where we were concerned that somebody was possibly self-dealing. So I guess if you know, to me, it's in black and white. It's not a matter of whether I feel like I'm being picked on or something. I have it in black and white. So that's where I'm
and I appreciate that, Madam Chair. I have not seen that letter, and you know, clearly I did not write it, so I can't really speak to that. That's news to me.
All right, so let's put it this way. Is there something we can agree on as a group? Let's start with the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, I agree that we should codify something in the, Andrew, what was that? I don't want to get it wrong. Is it the procedures and order and procedures?
Yes, there's the middle document was the
Yeah.
rules of order and procedure for the
There
Historic
it is.
District Commission, and you all can adopt that, make changes without going before the mayor and common council.
So what I'm thinking is somewhere in there, we say something along the lines of what Josh was saying. If the project costs more than $15,000, or we can determine that number, that we politely request a second quote. However, if one cannot be provided, we allow them an out. So for example, if it's they say they've tried everything they could do, and this is the only quote that came in, something up to that effect. And also codify that any particular entity that's bidding on the work not have any ownership, stake, or connection to the property on which they're working on. Those are the two things that in my head are the most clear cut.
I would second that.
All right, so discussion. I thought I heard 50,000 as a threshold. Now I'm hearing 15.
Oh, did I hear that wrong? Was it 15 or 50?
I don't think
Yeah.
we put a number out. I think we were just throwing out high numbers just to get the conversation rolling. And, you know, maybe we look for a recommendation from city staff to consider at our next meeting. Because I think we could throw out a lot of numbers right now. And unless that was informed on a reason, it might be shooting in the dark.
If the commission would like, we can bring back at the next meeting proposed language in your rules of order and procedure for your review.
Yeah, and I would love to know, you know, I know things have changed in the last 20 years, but it would be nice to know, at least in the last 10, what our average tax applications are, tax credit applications are. I really think they do fall in two modes, you know, 20,000 and under and 50,000 and up. It seems like those are kind of either you're doing it all or you're targeting a specific problem you're trying to fix. And I just like to see what the modality is from a statistical point of view.
I can go through if Mark is all right with me researching the Historic District applications for the last 15 years and providing everybody a mean number.
Yeah, there could be just a logical break point.
Okay.
So does that mean we table this discussion, or what?
I think
what
so.
Does the motion person do? Person who's making the motion, what does he suggest?
Were we going to wait on language from Andrew to make a motion to include that in the rules and orders of procedures?
I think that's a great idea, as long as we make a plan and we're not just pushing off the conversation again. I did want to briefly mention, I want to just give credit where credit's due. It was in the notes that the prior application from Ms. McMaster's was conditionally approved. So there was discussion in black and white there. And I do want to note that I wasn't, that, you know, the rest of us weren't kept in the dark about that. So to your earlier point, Chris, yes, what I would say is that the prior discussion wasn't really about you. It was about, again, just that we've had this conversation multiple times. So what is our best practice moving forward? But yes, to your point, Aaron, I think that is excellent. I think that's what we should do. We'll do some research. We'll button this up at our next meeting and we'll move ahead with it.
Madam
May I
Chairman,
ask one last piece of research? And, I really think somebody ought to call the state and the feds and ask them, because I think, frankly, we've been operating this way for well over 20 years. And I think that the one time we ask for multiple bids should not set a precedent. So we're requiring more restrictions on our citizens. I just personally find more restrictions kind of, taking a sledgehammer to a gnat.
Can I just jump in? So I guess my question is, what we don't want to hobble people. We want people to apply for these. We want the town to look, for the city to look better. So why, I think we are, like, the commission is acting on the best interest of, wanting the property owner to find the best person or the best company to do the job. That's our job, to make sure the person or the company that's trained, to do the job, whether it costs a little more or not. I think that's, we're looking out in the best interest. I don't think we're hobbling anybody to do that. So.
yeah, when I had initially, I think when we initially talked about this, the cost never factored into the request. It was never about lowest bid or dollar amount or anything like that. It was really just, should we be asking for at least 2 bids on these applications? And that was really how this whole thing started. But to the fact to move past this agenda item, we've only reached one agenda item in 40 minutes. So I would recommend, Madam Chairperson, if we could say that we will have communication regarding the language, kind of fine tuning it before next month's discussion. And then next month we make a motion on including it in the rules and order procedures. Would that be sufficient?
Are you ready to alter your second, Kevin?
Yeah, I agree with Aaron all the way.
Okay, are we ready to vote then? Any other questions? So all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All right. Does this cover our licensure issues?
When it comes to tax credit, that's a code standard. It's covered. Both the city of Frederick and the city of Westminster require for tax credits for payments made has to go to a licensed contractor. It's a code
When
standard.
did that start, Mark?
It's in the code. It was there before I got here. And again, I checked with the city of Frederick and they require the same.
So that's really a hardship, I think, on our local vendors. There's no requirement for a lot of our work to have a license. And so now a license is being required. I think that's really an onus that we shouldn't be embracing.
I respectfully disagree. It's different if somebody was coming out and doing work on their house or hiring somebody to do work on the house. It's different when they are asking for you as the arbiter of granting money for this work. I think it changes. It's a different aspect. So I think requiring and ensuring, and I think Christine is correct, we want to make sure the work that's being done is done by a professional, that we're giving money to a professional to do professional work in our historic district. So I can only assume that's why, that you want to ensure that the money that is coming from these programs.
But that doesn't, especially in my own case, there was no guarantee by my licensed contractor they were going to get the work done. I had to pull in someone who was unlicensed to get them back on track.
And there would be a subcontract. I don't think we get into the details. I think it's very simple. It's when you're requesting the money through the tax credit program, that check is written to a licensed contractor.
No,
But
it's
that
not.
was-
It's written to the homeowner. It's not written to the contractor. City check is written to the homeowner
For the purpose, I forget what the language was exactly.
for reimbursement. The homeowner's already paid out. Is there a way we could get a
Yeah.
lawyer to look at this?
Yes, you're right, you're right. The amount of money paid by the owner of an eligible property to a licensed contractor for eligible work for the materials. So yeah, so it does look like it's paid, but again, it's for a licensed contractor.
Can we get a lawyer to look at this? Because we've never enforced that before. And I think there's a number of people I know who would be out of work now.
Again, they could do work on your house not licensed, but when they're coming before the HDC asking for a tax credit, I think we're looking at a different situation at that point.
I know we are, but I also know that, like, the one guy from Sharpsburg, he's the best in the field and he doesn't need a license to work for the Park Service. I mean, to me, this seems to be a little bit, again, tying people up in knots and not going for the best people you can get.
I would hope people that are licensed contractors are the best people you could get. They are licensed.
You only need them if they have employees, if they have architectural and engineering services. Clearly, that's the statement of what licensure is in Carroll County and in the state. You don't need a license to paint. You don't need a license to do handyman services here.
But what he's saying
anywhere.
is you should have a license if you're requesting tax credits. And that's the differentiating factor.
But
is-
I'm requesting the tax credit, not the vendor. The vendor's being managed by me. And I
And
take all the risks. If they screw up, it's my problem.
But then we've approved funding for that mistake. And that is really what ultimately is what we're discussing is, and it looks like, I'm trying to find the passage in the city code now, just to see if there's contextual clues as to what it actually says, or if there's a reason why it was, because I don't remember ever seeing that it had to be done by a licensed contractor before, but that could have just been us not enforcing that rule. That rule could have been there for quite some time.
It could be, but I
Also-
would really find a carve out because there's just too many historic preservation experts who, would be aced out of this.
If I may,
Mhm.
Aaron, to answer your question, under section 143(5)(b), it talks about qualified expenses. And the definition for qualified expenses is the amount of money paid by the owner of an eligible property to a licensed contractor for eligible work for materials used to do eligible work by the owner.
I just want to point out Kevin had his hand up repeatedly. I just want to make sure that we give him a chance to talk.
Thank
I am
you.
so sorry. I did not see that. What's up, Kevin?
Well, also, we are not giving any checks, in my understanding. We are giving tax credit to the property owner up to 3 years. So there is no checks given to anybody. Am I right or wrong?
You're incorrect, Kevin. They're actually, you pay your tax credit, you pay your tax. And you go down and you have the paperwork approved at the Department of Finance, and they give you a check equivalent to the taxes you've already paid in.
Oh,
And
if you already paid.
Yes, you have to demonstrate you're paid
corrected.
up on your taxes, and then they give you a check, and that actually can go on for 5 years. But you have to pay your taxes first, and then you get reimbursed. So you do get
Okay.
a check.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I would love to pursue this some more with the city legal guy, because this, maybe we haven't been doing it right, but I really find this a problem. Because I can tell you I'll have to withdraw my application. Simple as that, I mean, I've tried to find bids all over the place, and this is, it's been 1.5 years trying to find someone to do this piddly amount of work. And my first guy had to wait for 1 year. And I just cannot imagine for $1,000 I'm going to be having to deal with this on a licensed basis. That's just blows my mind. For painting, that's just astounding. I think if I were part of the business community, I would find that appalling to have this extra level put on that isn't required for a lot of handyman work.
Madam Chair, I think you've raised some excellent points, and if I may, just aware, speaking of the business community, we have multiple other guests that are waiting tonight, and so just to the earlier point, if we could table that conversation for our next time, and I want to make sure that we do give our guests some time as well. So just wanted to raise that suggestion.
Certainly. So I think I'm skipping on then over B on to item C, new business. The pre-construction application for the historic rehabilitation property tax credit for TC-21-02. Mr. Gregg.
Madam Chair, item B.
No, not item B. We're skipping over that. I'm going to have to withdraw it. So we'll go down to new business first, new business on that. Item C.
All right. Thank you. This is for a pre-construction application for historic rehabilitation property tax credits, TC 2102. This is for the proposed covalent spirits at 116 to 120 East Main Street. This property is considered an eligible property per the city code. The project description, the property owner has provided cost estimates for exterior painting, exterior wall repair, exterior door replacement, and interior tasting room demo, speakeasy, bathrooms, kitchen prep area, bar area, ceilings, and the main floor and distillery. The cost estimates for exterior painting were provided by Bradley's Painting and JFJ and Sons as contained in the staff report and attachments 5 and 6. Bradley's Painting cost estimate was $8,360 and JFJ and Sons was $10,000. The work described for exterior painting appears to meet the eligible work requirements as contained in the city code. The applicant has supplied the commission the colors of the proposed painting so the commission can determine if the paint colors will be a detriment to the historic integrity of the structure. This is the proposed paint color for covalent spirits. For the exterior, the cost estimates for the exterior wall repair and exterior door, they were provided by JFJ and Sons and DeLuca Contractors as contained in the staff report and attachments 7 and 8. JFJ and Sons estimate for exterior wall repairs was $44,302 and DeLuca was undetermined. The work described for exterior wall repair and door replacement provided by JFJ and Sons appears to meet the eligible work requirements as contained in the city code. The work described by DeLuca Contractors does not provide a detailed invoice specific to exterior wall repair and door replacement, making it difficult to compare the two estimates. Furthermore, DeLuca Contractors provided cost estimate of $389,136, which does not provide individual estimates for each line item. Therefore, the planning department is unable to provide cost estimates for exterior wall repair or door replacement. Also, the applicant should explain whether the proposed new window on the right side of the building will complement its historic integrity. For the cost estimates for the interior work were provided by JFJ and Sons and DeLuca Contractors as contained in the staff report and attachments 8, 9, and 10. For JFJ and Sons, the cost estimate was $117,113 for the interior tasting room. For the interior distillery, that cost estimate was $29,614. And for DeLuca Contractors, it was, let me just make sure I'm not missing anything here. I apologize. For DeLuca Contractors, it was undetermined. The work described for the interior tasting room and distillery provided by JFJ and Sons and DeLuca contractors do not appear to meet the eligible work requirements as contained in the city code. The commission needs to decide what work, if any, discussed in these estimates are considered eligible work. If the commission determines the work described or portions thereto may be considered eligible work, the applicant should explain how the proposed interior restorations are necessary to restore or maintain the historic integrity and efficient or safe functioning of the eligible property, excluding elective and or cosmetic renovations. The Luca contractors provided a cost estimate of $389,136, which does not, as mentioned before, which does not provide individual estimates for each line item. And in the staff report, the work highlighted in red is recommended by planning staff as not being eligible work. In conclusion, the property owner is requesting historic tax credit program funding in the amount of $199,389. This amount is derived by using Bradley's painting cost estimate of $8,360 for the exterior painting and JFJ and Sons cost estimate of $44,302, $117,113, and $29,614 for exterior wall repair, interior tasting room improvements, and interior distillery improvements. However, if it is determined that the interior improvements are not considered eligible work, then the commission may only grant a tax credit of $52,662. Finally, for the staff recommendation, planning staff recommends that the commission review and provide application and attachments to determine whether, number one, what proposed work is outlined above qualifies as eligible work under section 143.5B. Number two, the estimated project cost of $352,660 is accurate and acceptable. Number three, the property is an eligible property. Number four, the quotes submitted are sufficient for receiving 2 quotes for the work. And number five, to approve and grant the certificate of eligibility for a historic tax credit in the amount of up to $5,266.20, consistent with City Code Section 143.5B, A, B, and C. Madam Chair, the applicant is on the call. If you have any questions for me, I would be happy to answer them. And the applicant is here as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I do have a question for you, Andrew, which might be helpful. Could you
Yes.
explain a little bit about how the facade improvement program is slightly different than our tax credit program?
Tax credit program. So for the facade improvement program, it's strictly for, as the name would imply, the facade of the building. The historic tax credit program is mainly for the exterior of the building. However, there's different things for weatherizing. For instance, different material to make sure that pipes don't leak, chimneys don't leak. And also in the city code, I'm just going off memory here, it talks about the interior renovations for the safe functioning of the building, excluding cosmetic or elective renovations to the interior of the building. That's the main difference from off the top of my head that I can think of with the two. And also the historic tax credits, like you've mentioned before, Madam Chair, historic tax credits are essentially a rebate. The facade improvement program is passed through the city from the state at a 50-50% matching. So those are the main differences.
All right, and as far as cosmetics, usually that's if something is actually functioning, like there's a perfectly good painted wall and somebody new moves in and says, we want a different color. But if there's damage, if it's, got cracks and isn't functioning like a painted wall should be, we've had that clarified through the state that that's not really cosmetic. If you need to fix a crack in a wall, the whole wall gets painted basically. So, all right. So thank you for that overview. Ms. Yang, I see you're on the line. Are you the sole spokesman for this project, or is someone else here tonight?
I am the sole spokesperson. The building property owner is listening in right now as well. Greg Brock is listening in, but my husband and I are the ones who put together this application. So I will be, I guess, presenting our application to the commission.
All right. All right. Well, so have you also considered state funding and federal funding? Because this might be eligible under those two tax credit programs.
Yeah, we did actually apply. There was a new state one that came out in October or end of September. So we applied for a new one that was, it was to help revitalize some of the main streets in the state and everything else too. So that was like a rent credit and some other things as well. So we did apply for that, but the analogous version of this, we, having explored it yet, because of just everything else that's been going on. But as you guys were talking today, I heard that. I did Google what the state one entailed to see whether or not we can still, if it's too late or not for us to hop on to that. But there was a different state one that we did apply for to see if we get anything. It was also for renovations and for rent credit. It was to help use buildings that haven't been used on main streets in towns to get them used. So it's a different, slightly different topic, but we did apply for that.
So for your information, the Maryland Historical Trust has a state rehabilitation tax credit program, and it's for nearly 20% of the costs of rehabilitating old structures. And you work through that same agency to get at the federal historic tax credits. And the federal historic tax credits are worth a solid 20%. And they're only for commercial properties. Like, I imagine this is just a commercial property. So, depending on how you do, you might still want to put in the paperwork because it's very similar to ours. The paperwork is not that hard. It just is in a different format. If you need help, I'm more than willing to help you because I've been through that rodeo a few times. And the state is really helpful with the Fed credits. So it's just worth thinking about. And we all hope that all the money we ask for comes through, but you never know.
Sure thing. Sure thing.
Great. So do our commissioners have any questions about this package?
Yeah, I looked it over, and I want to thank Andrew and the rest of the city staff for indicating on their report what is and is not eligible work for approval. I've really appreciated that. So thank you for taking the time to highlight that. One thing I did want to say is if we could get an itemized estimate for the work that's being done, so a line item for all of the work, that would help us determine the actual total, and that way we can, I feel, make a better decision.
So the challenge with that is that our contractors don't go through we've asked them to line item this more and more, and it's been a little challenging to get them line item down to a door or a window or things like along those lines. There are a couple items in here that the city did mark as perhaps not eligible that we think might be eligible. So perhaps we can discuss some of those items, but I understand it is hard to come with a dollar number when we don't know how each thing costs, but for me to go back to our contractors and ask them to itemize every single door or floor or, hardware item or something like that, I'm not sure if they will be able to do that.
What if we were to, as a commission, determine which work was eligible for this tax credit, and then provide you a list of that, and then you receive a quote just for those pieces of this estimate? Would that be, so rather than a line item, it's more of a total for only eligible work? How does the rest of the board feel about that? Is that something that we could potentially approve? Go ahead, Kevin.
I will interject now. I am excluding myself from any vote or talk about things because my son has an engineering company and did work for the site. So ethically, I think I should not be a part of the vote.
Thank you,
Yes,
Kevin.
actually,
Thank
Kevin's
you.
son did. We discovered that after we had hired him, after he did the work. But he did do the structural report, but he is not involved in any of the contracting companies that will do the work afterwards. And his report did not have any dollar numbers either. It was purely a structural analysis that we gave our contractors to do a price quote on. So that was where the division was.
Well, I ethically think if I should not be a part of the vote, so I am excluding myself. We have a quorum, so my vote doesn't matter either way. But thank you.
Thank you. You know, I'm looking right now. I only see one redlined item. Am I missing something here at
That might
Andrew?
be the facade application that's later on the agenda.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, item C, under grouping number 1, everything looks copacetic. Under line item 2, everything looks the same, except for the DeLuca contractors. It was undetermined. And under group 3 for the interior tasting room and distillery, that is where most of the red items are in that staff report.
And I will say this, when we recognize a lot that many of these items are out of scope. So we're not trying to say, oh, adding a picture frame of some sort is in scope or anything like that. No, so we did understand that, but because of the quotes we were given from our contractors, it's like I said, it's hard to kind of parse out some things and not some things. So we just kind of set everything in and let's see what the discussion takes us. And that is also with the DeLuca quote, same thing. We did get him to at least divide it out into different categories, but did not get the price quote that we wanted to per category. But during this whole process, we already made our decision which contractor to go with. So I did not feel like it was right for me to go back to DeLuca just for the purpose of this hearing to say, hey, can you give me an itemized, can you do more work for me, even though we're not going to hire you? So we have selected JFJ and Sons to do the work and everything. Yeah, but so we do recognize that some of these items in red are not in scope, but there are a couple in here that we would like to discuss to see if it's in scope or not for the commission's purview.
So Ms. Yang, could you begin with where you'd like to start the discussion?
Sure. I would like to just start with starting with item 3, the interior tasting room distillery. So the items that we're going to point out, we think fall perhaps in the safe use and efficient use of the building, which I know are some squishy words, but that's where we think this would fall. So we thought the first 2 bullets of demo, hauling away some stuff. I know that in another section, demo was included in black. Obviously, part of renovations is to get rid of the bad stuff. So if you've ever been inside this building, and I did not send in these pictures in, but the skylights are these ugly looking things that literally hang down with pink foamy stuff all around it. I mean, there's no way you can use that building for anything productive with the way the things are hanging down there. We had to clean out the crap, so to speak. That's what the first 2 things are, is to kind of clean out that stuff and just get rid of some of the crappy things that are in there. This is the garage side of that building that really hasn't been utilized for many years. So we believe that those first 2 items we would like to be considered to be in scope. And then if you scroll down to under speakeasy, the 3rd bullet from the bottom of that list, create new opening exterior wall for door in the bathroom hallway. We are actually required for egress and safety reasons to have this door put in. So it's not a cosmetic door where, trust me, if I don't have to pay for the door to be put in, I wouldn't put on the door in, but we have to put it there for, so we interpret that as for safety use of the building. We won't pass Yeah. That,
Mhm.
so that bullet. And then the 2 bullets underneath that are already in black. So I think we agree with those. The bathroom. So the next several bullets under bathrooms. Once again, the bathrooms to be fully compliant. And once again, we interpret the ADA requirements as a safety thing and a requirement thing. So we thought that the 5 bullets under bathrooms, we asked, would those be considered to make sure the bathrooms there are up to, up to the specs of being able to be used and for the building to be used. So those 5 bullets down there. So that's total on that page is 1, 2, 3, 8 bullets total on that page. So the first 2 under demo, 3rd from the last under speakeasy, and all 5 under bathrooms. Then on the next page, we are considering, we asked the commission to consider under the, see, it would be under the interior distillery. Let's see, once again, to consider framing the bathroom so that we can put a bathroom in there. There was actually an illegal bathroom in there that was not up to code. It's totally not up to code at all. So we need to do something with that. So that is the 4th bullet. That bullet we ask. And then the skip the frame ceiling. The next 2 red ones. Install drywall bathroom per plans. So it's running the bathroom. And then the next red one, vinyl wall base bathroom. Basically, it's all bathroom related, to have bathrooms that are legal, safe, and so forth. And the last 2 in there too also are bathrooms. Lots of bathroom stuff. And then that is it. Those are the ones we thought we wanted to present to the commission to consider including into the scope. So to sum it up, it's bathroom related items, ADA items, as well as that doorway that is required because of fire safety and egress safety and so forth, and the demo of the ugly stuff that hangs off the wall that looks really creepy. That's it.
Do we have any questions from our commissioners?
My question would be for the rest of the commission into how we define the safe functioning of an eligible property, if that would include anything regarding bathroom improvements or installations. I'm just not. I just wanted to see what the rest of the board thought about that.
So I have a question. Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would just note, I think Ms. Young brings up a pertinent point in that ADA bathrooms are a requirement for public spaces, and they do have strict, guidelines that are required by lots of folks. So I think that is a very interesting question, and is worth considering. Over to you, Christine.
I have to say it's been my experience that just about everything on this list would have been approved in the past as part of just making that building breathable again, making it efficient.
Oh, we welcome inclusion of more items if you would like to. So we would love for the whole list to be approved. Like I said, the safety and efficient use of the building, or whatever that clause is in the codes, what we kind of base this on is that, as you guys know, this building has been 20, 30 plus years of not being utilized, and no one sees one to really want to touch it. It is a very expensive project. You can see the total number to fix this up is, and I didn't even include our plumbing, our electrical, our mechanical stuff in here at all yet. So add that into our total project. So we obviously would welcome, we would love to have the inclusion of everything in here, but if not, then it those items.
For me, I see install bathroom mirrors, that could be debatable, but for just about everything else, this would be kind of considered normal as necessary to kind of get the building underway. Maybe I just don't feel there's that much here that would be removable in order to get this building up and going and feasible, you know? And no, Christine, you're awful quiet. What do you think?
Well, no, I didn't want to jump in. So, Ms. Yang, I think I speak for everybody on the commission that, you know, we are here to help you. We want you to be here, and we want to do everything to help, you know, businesses to come in and do it. So, we're not here to, at least I'm not, we're not, none of us are here to throw sticks at the spokes of the wheels. So I guess it's sort of like, you know, gathering as much information as we can to help expedite what you need to do. My question, and what I don't understand, is everything that's in red was determined to be not covered. Like you can't, it's not applicable for the tax credit. Is that Mark, I guess, or Andrew? I'm asking you, who determined that? Like, or that's just.
We did, staff, when we went through and did the staff report, we reviewed the city zoning, the city code under the tax credit section, and went through and provided these recommendation of ineligible items for the commission, for the commission's review.
Okay.
I think the thing we looked at is section 143(5)(b)(e). It's right at the beginning of the staff report, where it's twofold. It says interior restorations necessary to restore or maintain the historic integrity. So we did go back and forth. Is hanging a mirror on a wall restoring or maintaining historic integrity? I mean, if it was shoring up walls or adding additional beams to support and maintain or restore the historic integrity, we would certainly have recommended that. And not understand. And so I think we're leaving it up to the HDC. We stated that we believe they don't, but if the HDC finds that they do, by all means, the HDC has that authority to move forward. But we were looking at that first portion of restore or maintain historic integrity. And we're questioning whether improving the space for commercial use restores or maintains that historic integrity. And again, it's subjective, obviously, 100%. But we were looking at that first portion of that statement.
I think, Mark, we haven't done one of these big projects in a long time, but I think it's always been our practice that if it's something that can't be walked off with, like maybe the freestanding stainless steel work table, you can, you know, the table's to be provided by the owner. That's clearly not something that's stapled down, you know, that's something that could leave when the owners leave. So we would consider that furniture and not really part of the structure. But it, you know, preparing a kitchen prep area in order to make it a usable business, I think that's, to me, we would have included that in the last umpteen years. And if you're setting up a bar, then I think a mirrored wall is just sort of part of setting up a bar and making a feasible ongoing business entity. We've paid for interior improvements in the past in order to make things usable, but not things that you can walk off with that would be considered like furniture. But bathrooms, ceilings, all that kind of stuff in the past has been considered part of something approvable.
And I think the mirror, we included that partly. I have to go back and look, but I think it also might be an ADA thing too. So yeah, I have to go back and look. I think like certain types of mirrors, and you know, we're doing ADA compliant mirrors and all that stuff too. So that's, I think it's probably part of it as well. But I concur. The stainless steel workspace that it can move around is out of scope. Yes.
So
I would just again chime in and say I think there's a really powerful argument here, you know, to that on pursuant to the city code section E, efficient or safe functioning of an eligible property. Miss Young and her team, they are required to have these ADA bathrooms in there by code. That seems to me to be very reasonable to include that in our consideration favorably.
And if I can go off of that and you read further, excluding elective or cosmetic renovations, I think that's accurate. It's not an elective requirement to get usable space commercial usable space through the building code, you have to have an ADA compliant bathroom. So I think those are all very good arguments. So again,
I would
very-
also say, like, the drop ceilings are not elective. I mean, you need ceilings, to make it feasible and usable. I guess personally, I see very little. Are there things in here that just are red flags we can ask other than the stainless table that it be removed as a condition of approval?
What about demolition? Is there any precedence for demolition being included in a grant like this or a credit like this?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
You got a demo to make it feasible.
Okay.
and I think this is
Our
all useful. This,
is a efficient, right? Efficient use of the space. Sure, a lot of the change we are like reconfiguring the things and doing the kitchen and all. It is to make it more efficient and make it something that is more usable for that space. So sure, I mean, it's like I said, we put this in there to put it in there because we did interpret, we were reading this and hoping that the commission would consider this entire project, minus a couple little items here. But yeah, I mean, we're very excited for this project. We really, really are to bring this to Main Street.
I had a question for the applicant real quick. You said that this quote does not include any of the mechanicals. Is that correct? Plumbing,
Correct.
electrical?
Electrical and plumbing.
If and a question for the rest of the commission, if that was to be, how would she submit an application for that? Would that be a separate application? Would that be an addendum to this current application? Because that would be efficient function of the building in my opinion. How would that work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I had a tax credit to put my air conditioning in. Absolutely.
Okay.
Any of that kind of stuff would be included, and it would be included under the state, and it would be included under the feds.
And
I mean,
any,
again,
and if I may, any new work that's not stipulated in this application will require a new application, pre-construction application to come before the commission for you to review.
that's true.
Okay.
Yeah, the
So-
challenge was timing we wanted to submit all that in for this, but if you
Understood.
can believe it or not, we actually are having a hard time getting 2 quotes from plumbers and electricians. They keep backing out. Our plumber backed out Labor Day weekend, and we're just now about to sign another one, let alone get 2 quotes from somebody. And so I think the timing, we wanted to submit all this in, but our timing to get 2 quotes just did not fit this. So
It is so rough out there right now to find anybody to respond at all. Trust me, I know. I waited 1.5 years to get people to respond, so I get it. I get it. All right, well, so let's put it this way, commissioners, other than the mirror, and you said the mirror is actually ADA. So what in this list, commissioners, would you find absolutely out of whack with making this building useful and efficient and essentially preserving the envelope of the building for Main Street? Hearing none, is there a commissioner who might want to make a motion?
Would we be making a motion on the full application amount?
Yeah. Unless there's something you can remove and we could stipulate it as a removal.
So the total cost of the project, $352,660.
Yes, unless there's something that needs to be removed.
So could I make a motion on approving the application as written on the condition that the steel table be removed?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Is there a
then
second?
I make that motion.
Oh, sorry. Is there a second?
I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Josh. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's who else is left to vote? Christine, are you still there?
Yes, I had to step away. And we're voting, just to clarify, we're voting on,
The entire package with the kitchen table removed.
Yes.
All right, so it sounds like it carried. Andrew, do you understand what we did tonight?
I do. The only thing I would need from Ms. Yang is to provide the cost with that, and kitchen table, you meaning the 3 compartment stainless steel sink, correct?
I think there was a specific kitchen table that was standalone.
It was a stainless steel work table, which is the second bullet on page 4. That second bullet up there.
This one right here.
The installation, yeah, because the cost of it is on us, so it's the installation. So we'll find out from our contractor how much it costs to install this, which probably won't be that much, and we can back that out of the total number.
All right.
Thank you. So, Ms. Yang, do you understand? Andrew will write this up and I'll sign it. And then you'll be free to go do your work as prescribed here. And then when you're done, you'll come back and tell us and demonstrate that you did everything you said you were going to do. If you have a problem where you need to do a substantial change order, I will tell you, you need to bring it back to us. So we need to reconsider that substantial change. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
My microphone's acting odd now. Did everybody hear me?
I was going to mention that your microphone sounded a little off.
Okay. Hopefully it's back on now. All righty. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. You have any questions for us?
No, thank you very, very, very much. I only wish we were able to get our plumbing and electrical also submitted in here to be considered. Like I said, we didn't get 2 quotes, and we just frantically just looking for a plumber to backfill the last plumber that backed out. And so,
Well,
yeah.
You still have next month, and you could come back next month. You have to give us 15 days notice. And also the state and the feds will take that work too.
Okay. But we can't
Yeah.
start on the plumbing electrical work though, right? Until this is approved.
Right. You cannot get reimbursed at any work that's not pre-approved, whether it's us or the state or the feds. So I know time is money.
Well, I can't get reimbursed, but can they start the work and then I do the reimbursement after? No. Okay. So they have to
And
start
there's
now.
no retro approvals from any
Okay.
level of government that I know of. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so we'll miss that window because our plumber, given we're a month behind now with plumbing, they're gonna start next week, so we're just gonna move on and, oh well. But at least thank you for approving this full amount. This is more than we expected, so in a way, this kind of makes up for not having that. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I understand. It's really tough out there. Okay. Well, thank you very, very much. If you need any help, you can always contact us. All right.
Can I say one thing before we move on?
Mhm.
So I just wanted to say, I believe that the grant that Ms. Yang was talking about was Project Restore, the program that she had applied for. And just in case there's anyone who, as they look through this report and video, we have a press release on our website that allows, that gives all the information and application deadlines and whatnot. So if anybody else is interested in taking advantage of it, they can do that.
That's good. All right. So Andrew, help me out a little bit. We're now down to item
D.
D 121 East Main.
That is correct.
All right, because there were 2 pieces, I think, with the last one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For 121 East Main Street, the applicant is requesting facade improvement grant funding in the amount of $13,100 for the following facade improvements contained in the following estimate for the principal building. R&A painting is for $26,318, and then Robert T. Birkin's construction for $28,146. Facade improvement grants shall not include landscaping, and that's what was included in the grant for Robert T. Birkin's construction. The applicant should provide the commission the total cost of the landscaping to determine new estimated cost from Robert T. Birkin's construction. It should also be noted that no MHIC number was provided, and the Maryland Department of Labor showed no results on their website for the keywords Birkins in Westminster. For the review, the Historic District Commission should base their review on the application and decide on the appropriate funding level based on the following criteria. And this will be for the final two applications for both this application and the next item. Criteria 1, the estimated increase in property values after the facade improvement program project is completed. Number 2, the extent of historic preservation made to the building. Number 3, the percentage of private investment versus public investment. Number 4, whether the project will be completed within a 6-month time frame. And number 5, if the applicant is a first-time facade improvement program grant applicant. The commission should also base their review on the City of Westminster facade improvement overview, which is attachment 4 to the staff report. And finally, planning staff recommends the commission review the attached facade improvement application, City of Westminster facade improvement program overview, and attached estimates, and grant the appropriate funding for the project. Madam Chair, currently I do not see the applicant on the line. I'm going to take down the screen share so I can look in my email to see if the applicant has tried to get in contact with me. Because per the rules of order and procedure, we cannot go through with an item without the applicant being present. So if you don't mind just giving me 30 seconds. Thank you. And I do not see the applicant. The applicant did not try to get in contact with me during the meeting, and I do not see him online.
So Andrew, I have a few questions about this application,
Yes, Madam Chair.
and I'm really kind of concerned about it for if they come back. Can I just go through what I'm looking at that I have concerns with?
Can I just point out that I think we still have 2 more community members on the line for 2 additional applications. So it
All
may
right, could we can double back to this, but I think that we have to, okay, fine, I appreciate that, Josh. So we might as well deal with the people we have here, and then we can go over the bones of the last application. All right, so we've moved on then down to item E.
Item E, that is correct, Madam Chair.
118 East Main.
Yes, for 116, 118, and 120 East Main Street, the applicant has provided cost estimates for exterior painting and exterior wall repair and exterior door replacement. The cost estimates for the exterior painting were provided by Bradley's Painting and JFJ and Sons. Bradley's Painting's total cost estimate was $8,360, and JFJ and Sons cost estimate was $10,000. The applicant supplied the commission with colors of the proposed facade work, so the commission can determine if paint color will be a detriment to the historic integrity of the structure. Also, the applicant should confirm that the steel beams are located on the exterior of the building, and these wouldn't be steel beams on the interior. Also, for the exterior wall repair, cost estimates were provided by DeLuca Contractors and JFJ and Sons. JFJ and Sons total estimated cost was $44,302, and DeLuca Contractors total estimated cost was undetermined. The commission should determine if bricking in the historic window location should be covered as part of the facade improvement grant. Some of the proposed work contained in the DeLuca Contractors estimate is not eligible for facade improvement funding. The commission should decide how the work contained in the DeLuca Contractors quote compares to JFJ Sons exterior wall repair estimate. Furthermore, the applicant is requesting facade improvement grant funding in the amount of $26,330. This amount is derived by using Bradley's painting cost estimate of $8,360 for the exterior painting and JFJ and Sons cost estimate of $44,302 for the exterior wall repair. The Historic District Commission should base their review of this application and decide the appropriate funding level based on the criteria in the staff report and the facade improvement program overview. For the recommendation, planning staff recommends the commission review the attached facade improvement application, City of Westminster facade improvement program overview, and attached estimates, and grant the appropriate funding for the project. Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant is online if you have any questions, and I'm also here if you have any questions.
All right, so can I ask who the applicant is tonight?
The applicant is Ms. Yang.
It's me.
Oh,
I'm
Ms.
back.
Yang, you're still with us.
Yes.
Okay. Wow, you're a busy girl. Okay. So I just have a couple of questions I want to start out with, and I'm sure other commissioners will have some questions as well. One thing I'm a little bit concerned about is pressure washing exterior of the building. As a practice, that can be pretty damaging even to mortar and brickwork. And I would really caution that as something that's used to prep the building. I know it's quick and efficient financially, but for buildings, it can be very damaging. Usually we recommend hand scraping.
I can ask our painter about that. I can ask our painter about that. I'm sure he was thinking, he does have both some scraping and a little pressure washing combination of it.
I can
if
see
you were to
that.
hand-
Usually pressure washing for wood is really not advised.
For wood?
Yeah. Wood trim, it just can do a lot of damage.
The building is all brick and stone, I think.
Mhm. Well, even some of the brick that's before 1900, it's soft, and pressure washing can do damage, especially to the mortar. So that's why it's just not recommended as a treatment for older brick.
Okay. We have worked with him on older buildings before and haven't had an issue, but I can go back and talk to him about it. He did our house as well a couple years ago, and he was very, very good with the brick that we had and did it a certain way kind of thing. But I can go back and talk to him. If you were to hand scrape the entire building, it would actually probably increase the price of this. It would probably increase our quote as well.
Sometimes that really does happen, and it, the brick can be just delicate enough that it unfortunately kind of has to happen, or you end up with really long-term problems.
Okay.
The same thing is true about it says replace damaged bricks and loose bricks. Is there anything about the masonry joining the mortar that's going to be needed to replace these bricks?
Yeah, so all the changes that we are looking to do on the exterior came from the structural engineering report. And so the structural engineer had pinpointed which part of the building needed to, where brick needed to be repointed. So whether it be brick could be replaced or the mortar has to get replaced or along those lines. So we're following his report on what part of the building has to get addressed.
Did he recommend the kind of mortar that needed to be used?
I don't think he recommended the kind of mortar to be used.
So it's really important that the right kind of mortar is used on the right kind of bricks.
Mhm.
If you put mortar in that's got too much Portland cement, it'll grind your bricks up. If you put in bricks that are too hard, it won't flow with the rest of the brick wall. So they really need to be matched. And I know there's an expense involved, but that's really why these credits are around. The credits are not just around to encourage you to take care of historic structures, but to also bear the cost of really doing it right.
Okay.
I had a question for the applicant. The pressure washing, would that be in preparation for paint or some other type of coating, or would these the
Yes.
bricks remain exposed?
No, it's to prepare for painting.
to prepare for paint. So if you were to replace the bricks, the new bricks would be painted the same color as the old bricks, so they would blend in. Okay.
Correct. The masonry work would happen first, and then
Of
after all
course.
that stuff is done, then the painting would happen. Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions from our commissioners?
Am I hearing you correctly, Ms. Young, that you are prefer to go with Bradley's painting then?
Yes, we prefer to go with Bradley Painting and JFJ and Sons for the repointing of the brickwork, stuff like that. Mhm.
So one last thing, Ms. Yang, when you talk about replacement of, what did I see? Woodwork for doors, repaired. Yes, I might have, I thought I saw some kind of replacement of woodwork.
There's a prepare wood facade for paint.
There you go. I guess the rule of thumb, Ms. Yang, is that if you replace anything, you replace it with the same material. So if there, it mentions something about rotted wood work, you know, replace that or repair it. It needs to be replaced or repaired with wood if it's already wood.
Correct. I understand. I
does that
understand. make that's actually the quote for JFJ and Sons for exterior painting, and we're not using them for that. So
Okay.
yeah,
All
so that but yes, that understood. It replace it with the same material or as close to the same material as the building currently
Right.
has.
So if you're replacing a wood element, it's with another wood element. You know, if you're replacing a brick element, then it's with a similar kind of brick. It's not just a matter of looks; it's actually functionality. It's not good for the building to have, you know, extra hard patches. They tend to do damage to everything around them. So. All right. Anything else from any of our commissioners?
Yeah, I had a question for the rest of the commissioners. How the brick in the old window openings on the right side of the building. I know it's highlighted in red here. I just wanted to get the rest of the commission's experience, you know, in their experience, that's typically not included in a facade improvement grant, because I've never seen anything like that on a.
Can I explain this one?
Sure.
Currently, it's a plank of wood. It used to be a window. However long
It
ago.
is on the report. I think it's on page 10 if you want to scroll to it.
So if it used to be a window there. There's several windows on that side of the building, and then now it is a piece of plywood with some caulk or something like that with brick around it. So A, it's structurally unsound, and B, aesthetically not very pleasing because it's plywood.
And I'm so sorry for whoever's scrolling. Can you keep going down? It's actually, I think it's number 10 of the Wagman report there. Yeah.
Okay, page 10 of the report. Okay.
Yeah, my bad. So there you go. So I think there's a solid argument here that it's actually improving the facade and improving the historic nature of the building, because it's, you know, going
There they are.
to a material in line with what's there instead of painted plywood.
Yeah, so one of them, the one on the bottom picture, the one closest to us, I guess the one on the left, that's going to become a window. We're going to put a window back in there, and brick in open. So the other 2, 3, 4, we're going to brick in. It doesn't make sense to put a window given where our equipment and bar setup is going to be. You actually end up not be able to use or see the window, but to make it the facade make it look better, we want to make that whole wall look uniformly, you know, same look, because that's an eyesore. That's a big eyesore. That's the item in red here that we believe is definitely part of facade improvement.
All right, so from my point of view, one thing we want to keep in mind is also reversibility. Okay, so at some point, if someone really wanted to put windows back in there, we wouldn't want whatever we do to the facade to damage it such that you couldn't put another window back in there. So that whole concept of being able to reverse what you do, that would work for the brick, and since you're proposing putting a window in, that would work for both, I think. And I think I would agree with Josh. I think you could make a solid argument that, plywood's not very efficient as far as heating goes. I mean, to me, that would be a great energy loss right there.
Madam Chairperson, I'm scrolling through the Wagner report myself right now to answer your question about the mortar. And there is recommendation. He didn't say exactly what kind, but he did talk about, because I remember as you were talking about the mortar and brick, I remember a conversation I had with somebody educating me about that concept. And I was thinking, oh, I think it might have been our engineer. So he did write in here, the strength of the repair mortar must take into account the age of the brick, a standard modern type M or S mortar is likely too strong, type O or K more is likely appropriate for this repair. So he did actually in the report did specify or gave suggestions, recommendations on the type of mortar to use. He did.
Very good. So stick with that. Don't let your
Yes.
vendor go with anything but the O. And I can see from page 12 that brick is just so soft. That's a really soft brick, Gonna have to find some soft bricks to match.
Oh, yes.
All right. Do we have any other questions? First of all, Josh, did you feel your question was answered?
Absolutely. I do think the note about brick is pertinent, and I offer just a sidebar, and I don't mean this to be snarky, but I do think this is a great example for why a licensed contractor is needed on a project like this, because the brickwork does need to be with historic standards in mind, following the recommendations.
All righty. Any other questions?
There was a question in the report about confirm that steel beams are located on the exterior, and the answer is yes. They are the ones that are between the buildings. Those are the steel beams we were referring to. Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from anyone?
Chris, I just want to echo what you said about reversibility, and a lot of conservation, no matter if it's books or paper or artifacts, painting, whatever. Reversibility is something all the conservators follow. If something better comes along, you want to be able to reverse something to make something better. So yeah, I totally agree with what you said about the brick and the windows.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, do I hear a motion from the commissioners about this application?
Happy to motion that we approve it as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Who actually seconded that? Was that Christine? Okay, we got you on record.
All right, I'm off mute now. Yes, I did second it.
And were there any caveats about matching the brick or anything like that that we want to write as conditional?
If we want to write it as conditional, I say we approve the application as written, provided they adhere to the recommendation from their structural engineer.
Sounds good. Are you willing to change your motion to include that, Josh?
Absolutely. Sounds great.
And Christine, the second?
Yes, second.
Good. Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I don't want to overstep, but because this is the same project with the same engineer, I don't know for the record, and Kevin, not to put you on the spot, but you want to recuse? Okay.
I just assumed that. Sorry, Kevin. All right, so without Kevin, all in favor, please indicate by putting your thumb up. I see, can't even see Christine. Where is she? There she is, her thumbs up. Okay, so this one looks like it is also approved as presented with the condition of sticking with your engineer's recommendations, especially about the brick. Do you have any
Thank you.
questions for us?
No,
Ms.
thank
Yang?
you very much. Yay, thank you so much.
You know you can come to us if you need any further assistance or help.
Thank you.
We
Thank
know
you,
brick
thank you.
people.
Thank you
can
very
help.
much. This project definitely has cost a bit more than we expected as things get shifted and delayed. So this is very helpful to us. So thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. Thank you so much. Okay, as we move down the agenda, have we got any more people online? Josh, you're good at picking that out.
Yes, I believe both Mr. Knox and Mr. Camlin are still on the line.
And
Is this-
they're both for item F.
Let's move to that then. Demolition attachment.
So good evening. We're here today to talk about 288 East Main Street. When I first started talking to Mr. Knox, we had a permit that was that was asking to do 6 apartments on the property. We had talked about the fact that by code in that zoning district, 4 or less apartments were allowed by right. And if he wanted to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, he could ask for a 5th one, but based on the code and the way that the square footage was on the lot, a 6th one was not allowed. So we then received a demolition permit on August 18th. Actually, he submitted it on August 18th and we got it on August 19th. And you can see it on the screen. And so that was attachment 1 in your packet tonight. I apologize, of course my computer screen has frozen. I'm sorry. So in your staff report, you have several pieces of information. One of it talks about the buildings of Westminster, and an excerpt that talked about 288 East Main Street. We also had in there, as part of the review of the demolition permit, we did ask for a simplified site plan that was also submitted to us. It's also an additional attachment that was prepared by Dean Camlin and Associates that shows where the demolition will occur, and also kind of what they're proposing. In your staff report as well, as when we reached out and we talked to Dean about the property, he did talk about the fact of how it wasn't in good condition, and so that's why it took the direction of demolition versus repair, and they can speak to that. That's why Mr. Knox and Dean Camlin are on the call so that they can elaborate. But wanted to say that also in your staff report are relevant city code regulations. We provided all of that for you. The point of the conversation today is that we're going to, review this. We're going to talk about it, give Mr. Knox and Mr. Camlin the opportunity to talk and to understand what's going on with this property. And then it is the job of the commission to provide a recommendation to the zoning administrator, who is Mark. So Mark Depot is on the call as well. We do have the recommendation as we see it is that we recommend that any approval of the demolition permit be subject to the completion of a historical and architectural archiving report. Also, that any new development of the property would to use or reuse, the logs from the old log cabin as part of a new project. And then we would also request that they meet the requirements of the City of Westminster's, not only the design preference manual, but also the design guidelines for the historic district and the standards of renovation of Westminster. So I'm here to answer questions. But as I said, Mr. Knox as well as Mr. Camlin are on the call as well. And we can try to work through this however you'd like to start the conversation.
Well, I do have to say this is one project that I've heard an awful lot from the public on. And so I'm keenly interested in hearing as much as I can from everyone else, heard from my commissioner and private citizens about this particular project. So is there anything else that the owner or Mr. Camlin would like to address to the commission?
Actually, I apologize. There is just one more thing that I didn't say that I meant to say. I did want to just also point out the fact that Mr. Knox purchased the property in March of this year. And I wanted to also note the fact that according to all the city records that we can find, it's been since at least 2013 since this building was occupied. It could be farther back, but as far as what I could see, for instance, from water records, there has not been anyone in this property since 2013. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Knox, or Mr. Camlin.
I'll start with it. Can you guys hear me?
I can
Yes.
hear you, Mr. Knox.
I did buy it and I was trying to make apartments out of it. We went back to just being a 4-unit apartment place. I talked to the neighbors next to me and they said tarp's been on there for over 10 years. And over 10 years it deteriorated. Water threw out the whole house, I mean, for the last 10 years. So structurally, it's not sound no more. The bricks on the outside are starting to fall outward towards the other buildings. So that's a major concern there, structurally, everything. And then there's a couple of floors as Campbell walked through, Mr. Campbell walked through and said a lot of the architect floors needed completely ripped out, this and that. So I'm just trying to tear it down. That way I can get some money back on doing 4 apartments. And it's just a lot cheaper to start from ground up since the foundation is not great to start with.
You were where you were in a historic district?
No, I was not.
In, one of the oldest blocks in our whole city.
Told now.
And how is it that part of the building's already been ripped down?
I started because I was trying to keep my workers busy.
Excuse me, Mr. Knox, I'm having
Yes.
trouble understanding you. You're very distorted. Can you do something with your microphone or something? I'm really having trouble hearing what you're having to say.
I mean, I got a laptop I got, so I don't know how to fix that.
I'm wondering, Mr. Camlin, if you could share with us some more about the assessment of the structural integrity of the building. I think we all know that it's a historic building and, simultaneously it's been empty for a long time. So who knows what's all happening there. And so I wonder if you can just speak a little bit more to just how dire the situation has been with the building.
Thank you, Josh. I'd be happy to do that. And how is my sound volume? Is that all right? Jordan, maybe you could sit back and get a little bit farther away from the laptop. That might help with the distortion in the sound. All right. I went to visit the site. Met Jordan for the first time over there. I don't remember the date. I think it was late in August. And actually, I have some photographs of the property that I took that I could share with you. If Andrew, if you could allow me to share my screen.
Yes, and Dean, anything you share, can you please send to us so we can keep it in the record?
Certainly can. I would need you to give me permission to share my screen.
Yes, you do have permission.
All right. So you should all be able to see that this picture of the facade, the front of the building. The right-hand side of the building, which is the masonry side of the building, that had been covered with some OSB siding. This is the separate summer kitchen that's in the back of the building. This is the rear of the building, and you can see some of the demolition, or rather deterioration of the rear wall there. The left side is exposed concrete block. I think that was never really, what anyone would consider significant historically. The right-hand side, the right-hand portion of the building actually is the portion that has the original logs contained within it in the front part of the building. So this rear portion, that's as you can see, the wall is deteriorated. That's all masonry, and I don't believe that that was built at any time close to 1770, the date that's cited in the Christopher Weeks book. When I met Jordan out there at the site, we didn't really go into the building. We looked in through the open rear wall, and the floor structure appeared to me to have been exposed to the weather for years. It looked to be pretty severely deteriorated, and it did not look like it would support normal residential floor loading. And so that's why I recommended to Jordan that the floors inside the building would probably have to be removed to put new apartments in there.
Dean, is this pre-demo or is this a picture of post-demo?
This is a picture of the building as I found it.
But is that
So-
before demolition activity started or is that after demolition activity started?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because that looks to me like demo. It doesn't look to me like just deterioration.
They had a
I'm not sure whether the Chris, I'm not sure whether the wall, the opening in the wall there was because of brick collapse or because of active demolition. Jordan?
It's someone, the one cut on the right-hand side of that hole was cut. Because there was an old, I guess, fireplace that they were trying to patch up over the years. And I cut that so that way it could be reframed straight up and everything was deteriorating.
Excuse me, Mr. Knox, could you back away from your speaker a little bit? I cannot hear what you're saying at all. It's just very distorted.
Can
Could you
hear me?
repeat that, please? Thank you.
On the right-hand side of the hole, I cut straight line up so that way we could reframe that straight across. That way it was more structurally sound, but that didn't really happen very well.
So can I ask Mr. Knox, so what you're saying is that you did some demolition on this building before you got the permit to actually have this building demolished? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And is that why the roof is off? The roof is gone, right? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Before you got the permission to demo the building.
Correct.
Okay.
I was busy.
Thanks.
Now, Jordan, regarding the condition of the roof, there were holes in the roof, right?
Yes,
It was allowing weather in to the building?
yes. The roofing wasn't really doing nothing, in my opinion.
It's just when you see clean straight lines like that, that looks like demo to me. That's all I can say. All
Yeah,
right, so,
I think, Chris, the straight line on the right side is probably because there was a window there.
I understood Jordan to say he cut that line.
Yeah, that's what he said.
I said that, yes, but there was a window there also.
But
Right-
you,
right
but you
here.
took out part of that wall or the window, whatever was there purposely. So you took a chunk of that out. So that wasn't like that when you bought the building, correct?
No, it was worse than that when I bought the building.
Okay.
Jordan, was there a chimney there? Is that what the
Yes,
problem was?
at one time there was an old chimney there that they were trying to pillage up, but it was deteriorating. It was safer to have that down than have it up.
And the parging is what you see left right here. Is that right?
Right, right.
Okay.
All right, so do we have any questions, commissioners? We have a staff recommendation before us about documenting this to the recent rehab standards.
So-
I have two quick, were you, go ahead, Christine, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
that's okay. You go ahead. Let's go ahead.
Two things. One is I do want to note the public comment that we received about this structure, and we should talk about that. And two, you know, the pictures that you showed, Dean, and really appreciate that. Very helpful, but it's still kind of on a gray area for us. Like, I find it hard to really ascertain what's going on because we don't have any interior pictures. You know, like clearly there was damage there, but like the extent, there's a line right between, okay, it couldn't be made into apartments, but it could be salvaged, and it was so far gone that there's nothing left, you know, but to tear it down. And I'm just noting for the record, I can't really comment on that, you know, based on what we've seen or heard so far, other than you know, the city has said in their best judgment they thought it was too far gone to be saved. And so I would just encourage my other commissioners that we'd either have to agree with that or ask for more information.
Josh,
the plot
here's
thickens. Thank you, Dean.
Here's a picture of the interior, and on the left side, you see some of those original logs contained in the wall. That's actually the east wall. And we're looking up through an opening in the floor, and we're looking up to the sky, of course.
Mr. Camlin. So
Yes.
can I get some clarification, please? So yes, we're looking up to the sky because there's no roof, but was that, I mean, I drive that street every single day for the last 5 years. And I don't remember not seeing a roof until just recently. So was that roof just taken off recently, or am I just like blind and didn't see it?
No, I think it was removed recently, because some of these earlier, here are a couple of other pictures of those logs, but some of the, like right here, you can see that roof was still there.
Right. So again, I asked, so the roof was demolished before the permit, and the permit still hasn't been granted to demolish the building, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So why was the roof taken off before the permit was granted, if it's going to be granted? Why was the half of the wall taken out before the permit was granted? That's my question.
Jordan, you'll have to answer that.
I was just trying to keep things moving and keep my workers busy.
If I can interject, the city turned off the water in 213, I was told, but the person who owned it lived there, squatters, for up to a year or two ago. He belongs to the city gym and takes a shower there. So he doesn't have water, but he lived there, and also he lived in a van, in the back. So I say, we might not want to live that way, but somebody actually lived there up to 2 years ago without water and electric.
Well, there was electric there, but he lived in the van only.
So I think,
I can't hear you.
I said there was electric there. And he lived in the van only. And when I walked in there, you could tell he did not live inside the apartment, the property.
I'm sorry, are we talking about the same property? Kevin, I thought you said 213,
No,
288?
213, 2013, they turned off the water
Oh,
and electric, I said.
okay.
For what I was told, but you know, records could show when the last water bill there was.
so I would like to take up Josh's advice about reading public comment. Andrew, do we have public comment that can be read?
Yes, Madam Chair, let me bring that up for you.
While Andrew is looking at that, I did pull up the PDF file from the Maryland Historical Trust. There are pictures in that PDF document. I will chat this to everyone. It does have a picture of that chimney and window on the rear of the property.
Yeah, in that document, just for our education for our commissioners, in the National Historic District listing, that building is specifically called out by address. So it's important as a contributing property to our entire district. Not all properties in our National Historic District are listed by address. Some of them are just sort of clumped in areas, but that one is specifically called out as a log building and should have been readily obtainable by anybody who was doing their due diligence of looking at the historic district by just address.
And
Okay, Andrew, what would you read that for us, just because it's a little small for my old eyes?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, Andrew. I would like to submit some public comments regarding item F on this evening's Historic District Commission meeting agenda. The demolition permit for 288 East Main Street. I am strongly in opposition to the city granting a demolition permit for this structure. The building is actually referenced in Maryland Historic Trust's description of the Westminster Historic District, CARR-152, as one of the 4 remaining log buildings in Westminster. And it also appears in Weeks, the Building of Westminster, Maryland, and has its own MHT write-up as CARR-123, the Christian Yingling House. Christopher Weeks goes so far as to describe the building as the oldest building in Westminster. Number 1, I am extremely concerned that demolition has begun on the property without an approved demolition permit. I see the staff report notes comments from Dean Camlin that it would be difficult to salvage the building, but I have driven by this building every 2 weeks for the last 10 years for a bi-weekly appointment in the adjacent building, and the roof was intact throughout this time. It may have leaked, but the structure was present. Now the entire roof structure has been removed without an approved demo permit. Could the city please coordinate with the county to stop this illegal demolition work? The demolition actions are in violation of the county and city codes. Number two, the rear shed is noted to be demolished on the application, but is shown to remain on the site plan. If approval is granted to demo the main structure, the rear shed should be excluded from demolition. The rear shed was used by enslaved persons, and I believe is noted by Weeks to be the only remaining such slave cabin structure in the city. It needs to be maintained for historic preservation. Mr. Knox has installed furring strips on the exterior of the shed/cabin on the surface of the historic brick. The Historic District Commission should insist that the structure remain brick clad and not have an additional cladding installed on the face of the brick, contrary to the historic fabric. Number three, the city code allows the city to block demolition of this building and require the owner to come to an amendable solution. I do not think total demolition of the oldest building in this city to build a quadplex apartment building meets the city's historic preservation goals. I think the original log structure could be salvaged and restored and would be a more appropriate use for this site than what is being proposed. Respectfully, Nick Wegman, 443-244-3072.
Thank you, Andrew. I have to say, I've heard other such comments from other people that's just been verbal. Is that all the written public comment we have, Andrew?
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right. So we have a recommendation from the city to extend the building demo permit with the proviso that the logs in the building be retained. I'm concerned about the slave quarter in the back, and I'd like to hear from our other commissioners about what forward action we should be taking.
Has any contact been made with the Maryland Historical Trust because it is a registered property?
Not yet. They typically, the experience that I've had is that when there is an easement on the property, that's when they must be contacted before anything can happen to it. So because there is no easement, MHC easement on the property, it is just listed as a part of the inventory. We've not done that yet.
I have a question. So twice I asked, and I asked Mr. Knox, you know, the demo permit has not been granted yet by the city, but yet the roof is off and part of the wall is out before the permit has been granted. So on whose watch, like the city, was the city supposed to be watching this? I mean, while somebody's tearing something down before the permit was granted, or if it will be granted. So that's my first question. Why was that allowed to happen, and on whose watch was that? And you know, because, or what's the point of applying for a demo permit when people can just do what they want to do?
Andrew, would you like to address that?
Sorry, I thought I was off of mute and I was not.
Oh, Andrea, okay.
Oh, no. Yeah, Andrew can also address it. We approve simultaneously at the time that the city does look at permits, so does the county. So the county are the ones who do the inspections on behalf of the contracts that we have with the permit office. Mark, I don't know if you want to go into any more detail, if you can help answer this question.
There's really not much I can say. I would assume that the county and the permitting staff wouldn't monitor whether demolition starts until the permit's issued. City staff, we do not monitor development other than what's been approved. Or if it's brought to our attention, we would certainly coordinate with the applicant if they were doing something in violation with the zoning ordinance. And then we would again coordinate with the applicant and cease that work. But there, to answer your question, no, there isn't a entity that is monitoring the work, whether it begins prior to approval of the demolition permit.
So somebody dropped the ball is basically what everybody's saying. I'm just asking because I mean, this is a really historic, I mean, I've driven by there for the last 5 years and I've always admired it. And then suddenly it's just, you know, and then there's a permit and then, but it's coming down before the permit is granted. And it's just amazing to me. So.
Also, my understanding, before any grant or permit would be granted, it would go through the historic district. This is the first we heard of it.
I had
Yeah.
a couple of questions.
There seems to be a disconnect with, I want to pick up on Kevin's point before we move to a different one. I don't understand why this permit was not brought to us immediately. Maybe my timing is off. Maybe it did get brought to us, but it seems like if anyone can determine whether it's historic or not, it really should be this committee, this commission.
And on top of that, Chris, having the only structure that may be because of what Weeks documented, it is the only slave housing in the city left, and it is intact. According to Weeks, it was restored before he sold it. So to me, that building, the smokehouse or summer kitchen or slave quarters, was and still is viable building. Sorry, when I talk loud, I get loud. It's not I'm mad about anything. I just am emotional.
Well, I would like to kind of hammer back on, was there an earlier opportunity for this district to review the request as to whether or not it was historic? I mean, I sort of thought that's what we did with demo permits.
Yeah, well, if you look at the staff report, it was provided, we received the demolition permit on August 19th, 2021. So at that point, we started working with the applicant to ask for those plans. What exactly are you demoing? And what are you proposing to do on the site if the property is demoed? So we were doing our due diligence. The permit has not been approved. It's just part of the process. The next step, if you read the requirements, is there's entities that are supposed to provide a report to the director of planning, which is then provided to the applicant. Those entities don't exist in the city at this time. So we coordinate with the applicant to try to provide that information that these individuals would typically provide. So we were just following through the process. And at this point, it says that if the zoning administrator or director of planning finds that this may be a substantial, I forget the language exactly, element, that at that point I would notify the mayor and common council and the historic district commission about the permit, and then furthermore bring it to the historic district commission for recommendation. So we're just following through the process as it is.
So, but even the address alone didn't trigger you that it's in the historic district? We should hear about it immediately?
That's why they're here in front of you today.
Oh, okay. I guess I would have assumed in August, just the address alone would have been enough to put it on our radar screen. So we could provide for you, you know, just,
That's not the process. I mentioned it to the Historic District Commission at the last meeting that as a demolition permit was submitted and it's being reviewed. And we're just going through the process, and there are steps that have to occur before we bring it to the HDC for recommendation.
okay.
And
So-
just to say also, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, this probably would have taken a different trajectory, and it would have come to you probably sooner if it was in the historic zone, in the historic district zone. But being that this property is not, and that it has a separate zoning district, there are separate regulations that go forward with that. So the city, there's only 2 properties, I believe, that have that historic district zoning to it. And therefore, those are the 2 buildings that we would have more, we could have a lot more conversation about how we can, you know, work with someone regarding, you know, feasibility studies and all sorts of things. And that's with the properties in the historic zone, not
So,
properties that are in our historic district.
Andrea, we have 2 designated historic properties, but the historic district is far more encompassing.
No, I know, but the zoning is actually for the 2 properties. So we have a zoning, in our zoning code, there are specific things for what happens if a property in the historic zone, not district, right? I'm
Got it.
trying to differentiate, I'm sorry, the
Okay.
zone. If those, something wants to happen to those 2 properties, they come forward and there is a whole host of things that can happen. Historic district and district commission can have different options and discussions that are happening. But being that this property is not one of those properties and it is in the historic district, not the zone, there are things that there's a different process.
Would it be possible to, and this is a question for Mark, as part of the process, to just, and I'm not even saying Westminster Historic District, just as a Maryland historic, you know, just because that's a very easy database to search. It might be a little more tedious to search the Westminster Historic District, but the Maryland Historical Trust is a very easy database to search. Would it be possible to add just a quick checkbox to your list earlier in the process to check that database? And if it yields a positive result, bring it to the HDC at the next available opportunity. I don't know how much work that would add. I'm just posing a hypothetical.
It also brings to my I thinking now, okay, let's not care about if there are 2 properties. What is the actions by the city and county for demolition period to begin before a permit is granted?
Yeah, what are the ramifications, Mark?
That I don't know. Again, if you begin work prior to receiving permit, that's plumbing, electrical, any work, you're illegally doing work. There's really nothing in the zoning ordinance that dictates when demolition can start. It's the only time we really talk about demolition of buildings in the historic district is section chapter 56 in the code.
Excuse me, Mark, I cannot hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, if anybody does work without obtaining the necessary permits, they would certainly be in violation of any building code or other entity like that. That falls out of us. We don't handle the permits process of it. That's handled through the county. We can certainly find out what ramifications would be for beginning demolition prior to a permit being issued. I just don't know what the answer to that would be. But I think the important thing that Andrea mentioned, and this is where it gets a little confusing, is we have to step back. We have a historic district with multiple properties. That's typically Main Street, what people know as the historic district. And then an ordinance was created, creating the HDC and the historic district zone. And that zoning district is where the regulations are. The historic district, and as Andrea mentioned, only 2 properties are in this historic zone, this historic district zone, where there is much more regulation and authority by the HDC. In the district itself, whether it's a listed property or not, there is no true regulatory power that's listed that provides the HDC with any authority to that I can find to stop the demolition. It really just asks for a recommendation from the HDC to be provided to the zoning administrator, and the zoning administrator would take that recommendation in its action on the permit. So again, there's not a lot of regulatory power for demolition in the historic district unless your property is zoned historic district zone.
So excuse me, Mr. Depo, regardless of that, what you just said, the fact remains that demolition was started on this building before it was granted. It still has not been granted. So how do you address that? You just say, oh, well, you know, they already
looks like
started
there's
knocking it down, so we can just knock it down.
Yeah, it
that
looks like there's a
okay?
violations and penalties clause in this report.
I think it should be like, there should be a hold on this right now. Like, just like, stop it. It needs to be stopped, and this needs to be investigated before this whole thing is torn down, especially since it was done illegally.
And we can do that. We'll reach out to the county tomorrow to find out what the ramifications are, to see if they're aware of the fact that demolition had begun.
Well,
And then we can work through the ramifications of whatever violations are possible.
well, somebody dropped the ball.
Again,
Somebody
and I
really
wouldn't-
dropped the ball on this.
I wouldn't say anybody dropped the ball. There is no staff member that is monitoring this type of work in the city.
Well, you're saying county, now you're saying city. So whose responsibility is it?
Or the county. I would think they don't have
Both of them.
Both of them.
That is staff that's driving around the county to determine whether demolition's occurring.
I
So-
also just want to,
Go ahead.
no, I just want to say also that something that I do permits. So one of the things that just to think about and just to remember as we work through this conversation, all of the permits are contracted to go to the county first. We are a review agency for the county, but ultimately we do not do the inspections. We do not do the, and we don't grant the permit in itself. We are our own review agency. So I just wanted to, just because I've heard, not in this conversation, I'm just saying in general, a lot of people don't know that we are a review agency of the permit and that we ultimately don't have the authority to do, we don't do the inspections. Once again, that's with the county.
We don't issue the permit, the county issue, we just approve or deny a permit. And we're just. one
That's
of the-
brought to you, right?
Yeah, we're just one of the many agencies that are review
Yeah.
agencies. We're,
Don't,
Yeah, and I think though that this is worth saying. I think part of the frustration from the commissioners here, it should not be directed against city staff. It has to do with a systemic problem with the way the system is set up here that, you know, you're hearing delineated here. And I have every assurance that Mark and Andrea and everybody on this line is doing their best. And this goes back to a conversation we had at our last meeting of what is the actual process, what are the actual ramifications, what are the teeth that we have in general here in Westminster about all of our historic buildings. And so I just want to draw the rest of my commissioners' attention to the fact that as far as I can tell, this isn't the city. The city brought it to us. They alerted us as soon as they heard of it. I remember them saying in previous meetings, hey guys, we have this situation coming down the line. Be ready to talk about it. There's just a bigger problem here that, you know, merits further discussion beyond what we can do this evening of what's the deal with that.
Josh, I agree with you 100%, but doesn't the city have a code inspector too. So I get only would think it's Main Street. Wouldn't you think somebody, if they are driving on Main Street, miss a building, and then next to the building, there are hundreds of bricks on the ground now. So how did we miss that?
Well, in a futile effort to move the ball down the court just one more foot, is there any chance, at least tonight, we can give firm direction that we want the building as it is to be recorded to Secretary of Interior standards? I mean, that would have been a minimum we would have asked, regardless if we have any other requirements or requests, and we can give this homeowner that direction at least as a minimum.
I think, Ms. McMaster's, what you're saying makes sense, but I'm concerned, and it's extremely disturbing to me that we're going to have this discussion and we're just going to go, you know, it's already started and we're just going to permit. So what I don't understand is it's a city, it's a building in the city, and then people are passing the ball to the county. Oh, the county is responsible for this. So I still don't have a clear idea if the city's responsible, if the county's responsible. Nobody seems to be responsible, yet this building, this extremely historic building, you know, is coming down. I don't think the building, I'm going to just say it, I don't think this building should come down. I think there should be a hold put on this until it has been discussed more or looked at, because, you know, if anybody is aware, like there's hundreds of historic sites, buildings that have been brought down to the bones, and they can be, this building could be restored if somebody wants to put some money, or the Maryland Historic Trust or federal or whatever. It can absolutely happen. So just because the roof is missing now and there's part of the wall, it does not mean this building cannot be restored. At least the facade. You can make it an apartment building, but for goodness sakes, you can't just say, oh, well, you know, we made a mistake on this one, so we're just going to let it slide. I say no. So what can be done about that?
Chris, back to your comments. I think right now, Mr. Mark and his associates should do immediately a stop action on the property, period, till we can all discuss it.
Agree, Kevin.
So Kevin, is that in the form of a motion?
I make a motion that we instruct Mr. Mark and his associate at the city to start immediately stop work injunction and follow through tomorrow with the county, so they know they are on the same page as us. And I don't know if there should be any fines put forward if any work is done. I'm making up $250 a day at a minimum to have some teeth in the stop action working permit.
Absolutely agree. What's the point if there are no repercussions when somebody just blatantly ignores, you know, a permit, you know, that they didn't get yet? Then what, you know, I mean, what's the point of even having the process?
Also,
so I would second your motion, Kevin.
Also, I don't know Mr. Knox at all, except I understand he's an electrician. So part of me says, as I was a vocational teacher for 31 years, he would know he cannot perform any work without a permit. So to have us talk about demolition prior to a permit is mind-blowing to me.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Do we want to solicit comment from city staff?
Yes.
I mean, I guess I just want to know, Mark Depot, is this, you know, is this a motion that can be done?
We'll have to talk to the city attorney as to whether there's any action we can take,
Okay,
or if the HTC has the authority to direct staff to place violations on the property.
all right. Is there any comment from any other city staff, Andrea or Andrew?
None for me, Madam Chair.
None for me as well.
All right. So do we have any comments from our commissioners?
If I can real quick, I would just want to clarify what I just said. Just because the HTC may not have that authority, I'm still going to look into it. If I have the
Excuse me, Mr.
authority,
Dippo, I cannot hear you.
I'm sorry. I said, I'm not sure if the HTC has the authority to direct us to place a violation, but I'm not saying I'm not going to look into it and make that decision on my own. If they're in violation of the ordinance and working with the county in violation of a demo permit, we will certainly take action separately, whether it's directed by HTC or not.
So I
Thank
just
you.
have another question, no matter it's county or city. If you apply for a permit or anything in the city and you're waiting to get permission to do whatever it is you want to do, but you go ahead and take it upon yourself to do what you want before you get permission, aren't there consequences? I don't care what it is. It doesn't have to be Historic District Commission. It could be anything. You know, building a patio on your, or building a deck on your house. You know, what are the consequences there? What would the consequences there be? They have to be the same as this. This is mind blowing to me that we can just say, oh, yeah, they just disregarded it and they're going to do what they want to do. You know, if you have that, they're going to have chaos. So that's my question. So there has to be something.
Well, I agree.
Chris-
There would have to be some level of violation and penalty or something to that effect for doing work without the required permit.
So can we have any other questions, or are we ready to vote on that motion?
So to clarify, the motion was for requesting a stop on the current work on the property and a research into any violations that could be levied for proceeding to work unlicensed, unpermitted. Is that correct?
That's what I understand it to be.
Okay.
Is that what
I
you
just
said?
wanted clarification.
Yes.
And that's what you understood,
Well
Christine?
stated.
All right, so if there are no other questions, let's take a vote on this motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Sounds like the motion carried. Okay, I'm gonna do one more pleading because I can't really do a motion, but I can plead and say, regardless of how this goes, we're gonna need great documentation of this building. If it can be saved or not saved, it should be a requirement, and I would plead that we do it now before weather makes it even worse. And I think we can request that as something to be expected so that the homeowner can begin work on getting a high class, well done historic structures report. I'm leaving that out for you. I really think that regardless of how this goes in any direction, that report's going to be a cornerstone and foundational to what we need to know.
Absolutely agree.
Would you put that in a motion?
I can make a motion here. any building that has anybody that, so any building that is.
Could we make it more specific to?
I'm sorry?
Could we make it more specific to this very instance rather than a global policy?
All right, so what's the address again? 122?
288.
I'm sorry. What?
288 East Main.
Okay, so most of it, the property at 288 East Main be historically documented as soon as possible, so we have it on record before anything else is done to the building.
To the standards of the documentation of and over historic stuff.
Interior.
Yeah, by the Department.
Exterior and interior, yes. Do I need to restate that again?
Department of Interior.
Yeah, the Department of Interior standards for historic preservation documentation.
Second.
So Kevin seconds it. So just as a point of clarification for our homeowner, this would have been required whether or not the demo was, granted, or whether from any point forward, we need this information as a matter of record. This would be a minimum. So you're not feeling like we're somehow being difficult. This is just a minimum record that would be required for any important historic structure in town. And you might as well get cracking on it now, because that work is somewhat complicated and difficult to bring to the standards of the National Park Service and Department of Interior. So any discussion by our commission?
We are also talking about the house and the summer kitchen, and possibly that was where slaves lived. So we are talking two buildings, aren't we?
Yes.
Yes. That would be my understanding for the demo permit.
Well, one of the things they planned by Dean was the plans don't have the summer kitchen in, but on the demo, it says the summer kitchen would stay. So I'm confused which way.
We'll have to have that clarified, but it should be documented regardless.
Well, also, to me, I say the summer kitchen should stay if it is the only example left in the city, period.
Mr. Wagman, I absolutely agree. I was going to say that, and you said it before I did, because to me, from the photos at least, it looks like it's in decent condition. And Mr. Knox, did he just leave? He just left. Mr. Knox, it's not that we don't want you to build your apartments, but at the very least, keep the facade. And, I think it has way more charm and historic significance, and, in keeping the summer kitchen also. So, gut part of the inside, leave some of the log structure, leave the facade, clean that up, but, just, and you could, I'm speaking for myself, but I think that most people would agree. It's the facade and the documentation, and you can make it habitable, but just the fact you could just rip it down because you feel like ripping it down, especially without the documentation. So it's not like we're after, at least me personally, I'm not like after you. I just think some thought needs to be put into this. So.
Are we ready to vote? Okay.
I need a reminder of what we're voting on.
Andrew,
Sorry,
could
folks,
you
it's
read
just,
that back? Oh, Andrew's not taking notes. So let me
is
rephrase
this
it as
just, this is documentation of the site.
right,
Yep,
documentation of everything that was going to be required for demo. And it's documentation to the Secretary of Interior standards for documentation of historic properties. It's the newest standards. All right, so if there are no other questions, all in favor indicate by saying aye or putting your thumb up.
I,
Josh, did your thumb go up? No, yes or no? Yes,
it did.
and I believe Christine did too. Okay, so that motion is carried. All right, is there anything more we can do this evening on the demo permit? City staff, is there anything else we ought to be doing about the demo permit from your recommendations?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm waiting for a recommendation by the Historic District Commission before I act on the permit. So if I'm hearing correctly, you want that information be provided, in this case, be brought back to the HDC.
Right, before any kind of condition of approval at all. You want to see that documentation.
Okay.
That's what I would understand the act of the commission to be. We'd also like to find out what the repercussions are for working without a permit, but that would be an independent inquiry.
Also, to protect what's left of the interior, should the roof be covered back up temporarily just to prevent further damage from the weather? In the meantime, since it was taken off before it was permitted to be taken off?
That would be a prudent thing to do, especially if a demo permit's not going to be granted. You know, you'd want to protect what you do have that's open and exposed.
Do we need to vote on that, or can we just say you need to do that because you're in violation of the permit?
To me, I think it would be a common sense thing. I don't know that we have really jurisdiction to tell a homeowner how to protect his investment.
Mr. Depot, since since the roof was ripped off before the permission was granted, can somebody, some entity, require that some protection? I don't know what you could put on, tarping or something, I don't know, to protect the interior until the documentation is done properly, and if and when the demo permit is actually granted.
The zoning ordinance doesn't give me that authority, but again, I think coordinating with the county, and if there's violations with the demo permit, maybe that's the avenue that could allow for protection of the building until the permit's processed, if approved. So we'll coordinate with the county on that. I don't personally have that ability. The zoning ordinance doesn't give me that authority.
Mr. Depot, can I have a request that the city or your office gives us an update like twice a week until we have this situation resolved? That way we are informed, and if I had to contact some county commissioners, I will put pressure on them too. I think very important.
My plan was to provide a follow-up memo to the Historic District Commission prior to the next meeting, just highlighting some of the questions and issues that came up, and to provide what actions we can take and have taken.
So, Mr. Depot, can we ask for something more frequent than that? Because we can declare an emergency meeting on a single topic with enough warning to the public. And if we're not, it depends on what the county has to say. We may need a meeting in 2 weeks.
And we may, again, I was intending to provide a memo that I can still provide the HDC, and then the determination is we should meet on it. that's fine. I just want to give you, as soon as we get this information that's been requested, I would at least want to put in a memo form and forward that to the HTC members versus waiting till the next meeting.
Absolutely. I think the intent of Mr. Wagman's request was as frequent as possible so that we can continue to say
Yes.
we're staying diligent and that we're on top of it and that we are willing to help resolve this as quickly as possible.
Also, I think maybe this is important enough to contact our city attorney and find out what she recommends.
Well, that's absolutely on my list.
Good, thank you.
Okay, is there any other demolition permit actions that this commission would like to take?
No, I think we should keep a meeting going on so then we can go for breakfast.
Well, I still did not get my items in on the tax credit that the homeowner did not show up, but I want to thank Mr. Knox and Mr. Camlin. I think we're finished with this topic for the evening. And I understand we're all in a very unfortunate position. And I want to thank you for your attention and patience.
May I say one thing real quick?
Sure.
I didn't hear everything because my internet was going in and out, but I stopped all demolition. There will not be no more demolition until I hear something from you guys. Okay?
I appreciate your being a good citizen and working with us.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, have a good night, Mr. Knox.
You too.
And Mr. Camlin, thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Wait.
What-
Do we not want to make recommendations for that application that came in that had some questionable stuff on it? I mean, they didn't show up tonight, but I would think the city could contact them and tell them where their deficiencies are.
Yeah, yes, and Madam Chair, if you don't mind, could we take a 2-minute recess so I can plug this computer in? It is, it's gonna die in
No
about
problem.
3 minutes. I'll be,
I know exactly what you're saying.
whoop,
I had to plug mine in.
Which one was it that we skipped so I can find it?
Andrew's computer died as he was trying to plug it in. I believe it was,
Was it 121?
yeah, I believe it was item D.
I mean, I hate to say this, but we might as well just give them directions so they have a chance to fix it before the next meeting. And I know it's late. I thank you guys for hanging in there. This has got to be a record for me.
Christine, I know this is probably what, your 4th meeting? They're not all this long, I promise.
No, I think this is extremely important. It's just,
It's pretty stunning, isn't it?
it is amazing. Yeah.
This is I've been through a few demos and this has got to be all of the worst factors all together at once for me. That's my
Sounds
personal
like it.
opinion.
It sounds like it.
We've had other difficult factors, but this one's got to be probably the, perfect storm.
We kind of fought a lot with the East Middle School projects. That was another big headache.
That was, but at least we had teeth in that one.
Well, that's
We
the
had
bottom
to-
line. If you don't have teeth in anything, I mean, that's what I'm hoping at some point can work
Well,
on.
to be honest, I've never seen us say no to a permit. This tonight was groundbreaking. I don't even know how that's going to roll out. I was always advised we couldn't do that. So
What's the
kudos to you
point?
guys. Kudos to you guys for even suggesting it.
What's the point? Like, what's the point of a permit? Just let everybody do what they want to do then.
Sorry, right
Well,
when I said computer was going to die, it had 6% left and it did in fact die.
Oh, no. So
And
Andrew, can
if
you-
I can just interject here, I just want to just continue to remind us that we are live on Facebook and being recorded. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So Andrew, just for us looking at 121,
Yes. Let
facade
me,
improvement, 121 East Main.
yes, let me go back to that. Hold on one second.
So I'm going to be super quick with you all, and I know you've got things you probably want to add into, but I'll try and do it in rapid pace.
I thought we couldn't do any permits or talk about things unless the owner was present. So am I mistaken? If the applicant is not in front of us, how do we talk about it?
we are allowed to talk about it and give recommendations. We just can't recommend any course of action until they are here. We can't vote on anything, is my understanding.
Good, Josh. Thank you for clarifying that.
Andrew, are you ready?
Yes, Madam Chair.
So I'm looking at the work and it says replace gutters and brackets. And I would just like to see in kind, right? If they're half moon gutters, then half moon gutters get replaced. If they're K gutters, then K gutters get replaced. But it's in kind. And
Okay.
I can't tell that from this detailed whatever.
Okay.
It says replace rotten corbels. So corbels are normally bricks that are levered out from the wall. If they're rotten bricks, fine, they should state that. If it's somehow a wooden corbel, fine, they should state that, but it should be a replacement in kind.
Okay.
All right. And
Sounds good.
corbels are very rare. Corbels are actually very hard to do, so they're rare. So they need to be replaced in kind. You can't
Sounds
take
good.
brick ones and replace them with wooden ones.
And
I will let the applicant know.
don't we also want pictures showing the deterioration of that specifically?
So I think we have a lot of pictures, but it's not clear that the construction guys understand that when they say replace all rotten trim and molding and shutters, the shutters need to be replaced in kind, not just with vinyl shutters.
Yes.
So the pictures don't help with that. I think I'm zeroing in on their description. Same thing is true with replacing rotten door frames. It should be replaced in kind, wood for wood, metal for metal. The landscaping is, I think, right on, Andrew. We can't pay for landscaping. Those are the only things I saw within the description of the project that needed focusing in on.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody else see anything that might be helpful to this applicant for the facade improvement?
I just have a question. So, totally agree, materials have to be replaced in kind, but what about the detail in the work? Like the well, it's not gingerbread, but so if there's a rotting windowsill, it needs to, when you say in kind, it needs to mimic the original, the shape, the style, everything, right? Okay, so they can't just say, oh, we don't want, we're just rip it out, we'll put wood in, but it's gonna, okay.
That's right. It has to be sympathetic to the original material. Doesn't necessarily have to be identical so that the eye can't catch it, but it has to be. Now, in the pictures I can see, those are half moon gutters. So even, a 4-inch or a 6-inch ought to be replaced unless there's a good reason not to.
But they can't just rip the detail off.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So Andrew, that's probably an important thing to say. For example, the shutters, should be repaired before they're replaced. And if they're replaced, they got to be replaced in kind to be in sympathy with the original design and fabric.
Sounds good.
Boy, this is a beautiful building and they really do have corbelling, but I can't imagine that it's bad. I think they must be talking about the denticulate underneath the cornice work. The corbel bricks are just, they don't look bad to me. Of course, I could be wrong.
Yeah, not to be the constant refrain here, but I'll just point out we asked for itemized lists earlier in the evening, and this is another example of one where it's a long list and then a rather substantial price tag without full explanation to that regard.
Any specifics?
Well, and it's in the narrative. I mean, it all could have been easily dealt with in the narrative and they could have gotten 2 lump sum bids, but it had to be, you had to say somewhere, right, in the narrative that it's going to be managed well. You can have a highly detailed narrative and just still have 2 lump sum bids, and that would still meet our criteria of multiple bids. But yes, it was helpful that the staff broke it out and put it into their project description. All right, anything else on this so that we're sure that when they come back, they have a good solid presentation for us?
I had one question. This is a clarification question. Maybe I'm just missing what this is, but on the very first page of this report, under RNA painting, under that itemized list, the 5th bullet down says team out brushes. What is that, historically speaking?
I am not sure when that was going to be a question for the applicants for RNA painting. Yeah, I'm not.
I bet it's tear out bushes.
Oh,
It's tear out bushes.
got it. Okay. I see it
Probably
there.
landscape work.
Yeah.
That's a good trivia question, but yeah, I'll bet. But Andrew, you'll have to get that
Clarified.
clarified and removed from the application.
Will do.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Then thank you guys. This is a terrifically hard job tonight. They're not paying us enough. I want to thank everybody for all your hard work and patience. And I think we're
There is one more item.
which is reporting.
It's the Sustainable Communities Renewal Application discussion.
Oh my goodness.
Item G. I'll go through this. The Sustainable Community Designation.
Hey, I'm sorry, Andrew, to interrupt. There is no item G on my screen.
It's on the agenda page. It's not on the attachments page.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, proceed, Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you. The Sustainable Community Designation is a threshold requirement for application to certain state programs such as Community Legacy, which includes the Facade Improvement Program and the Strategic Demolition Fund. Governments must submit an application in which they define a geographic area, which the city has done, and submit a Sustainable Community Action Plan, a summary of initiatives and projects for the revitalization of the targeted sustainable community area. Sustainable community plans are good for 5 years. Last one was completed in 2017. Was due in 2017. The next one is for 2022. It's actually due to the state on October 26th of this year. Some of the things for Westminster, and basically I just want to get it to the point that the Historic District Commission has been identified as one of the stakeholders, and I would like to get the Historic District Commission's support with a support letter that's signed by the chair for that the Historic District Commission supports the city's application to the Department of Housing and Community Development for our Sustainable Communities application. Just real briefly, things pertaining to the historic district in the application for economy. The application's broken out into sections such as land use and planning, economy, transportation, different things like that. For economy, in our application has provide economic incentives for economic development. That would be our tax credit and facade improvement grants. For community health and quality of life, since 2017, 20 business and residential facades have been improved through the Community Legacy, which is the facade improvement program, and the city's historic tax credit. For the economy, attract and retain small businesses on Main Street. We will continue to mention historic tax credits to eligible properties, which we do. For instance, Covalent Spirits, we mentioned tax credits, and they came forward in front of you all today. Transportation, there's reference to transportation guidelines and for HDC guidance in the Historic District Commission. Standards for renovation, that's one of the accomplishments that the Historic District Commission completed those back in 2018. We do have an active Historic District Commission, obviously, with all of you here. And one of the negatives, as Andrea mentioned earlier, only 2 properties in the Historic District Zone. Then for land use and planning, preserve and protect Westminster's character while protecting property rights. And then there's, it goes into a little bit more detail. For instance, actually, let me, sorry about that. Let me do a stop share. Also for local planning and land use, to preserve and protect Westminster's historic character. In that section, it talks about continue to encourage historically sensitive rehabilitation through the administration of rehabilitation property tax credits and facade improvements, and different things like that. So I'm just coming for the Historic District Commission to just ask if I can get a support letter that the chair of the Historic District Commission would sign for this application that's due on October 26th of this year. So we can get this plan forward to continue to help our city and our historic district. Thank you, Madam Chair. If you have any questions, please let me know. And so, sorry for all the technical difficulties. I didn't know at 6%, the computer just didn't want to work anymore, so I apologize.
Okay, I had to get my electric cord in the middle of somebody's presentation, so I hope nobody noticed I ran out of the room. So, do we want to take a formal action on this, Commission? And if so, we should have a motion.
I make a motion, we write a letter supporting everything the city is done and what Mr. Gray said.
Is there a second?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Josh. Is there any further discussion? Andrew, is there a chance I could actually look at it before I sign anything?
Absolutely.
I'm happy to look over applications. They don't take too long usually.
Well,
it might not even be written yet.
Except this one, Chair McMaster's is 56 pages long.
I'm a speed reader. I'm a speed reader.
I think it's expanding. It's
oh, thanks.
Growing.
Mark told me, he said, I don't need to write a thesis. So I'm trying not to.
All right. Any other discussion before we're ready to vote on this? Hearing none, then I'll ask for thumbs up. Oh, I only got one. Looks to me like the motion is going to fail. Nope, 2, 3. Okay, I got 3. The motion will pass then. Thank you, everybody. All right, do we have any commission comments? We've already heard our public comments for this evening, I believe.
I have one. Thank you all for your time tonight and all your comments. I felt they were heartfelt, and that what makes Westminster City so great. We have people that care. Thank you.
I second that notion, Kevin. Thank you, everyone. Anyone else have any comments for the good of the cause for history?
Thank you, everyone.
I have usually a litany of stuff, but I'll save it till next month. All right, then hearing nothing else, I think I declare this meeting adjourned. And I want to thank everyone.